Hey guys, welcome to the history of FMW. This is episode number 24. We're going to be covering the second half of 2000. When we last left, Tenryu had showed up to be Hayabusa's partner at a show, and we're going to start off on July 13th. War ran a show at Kurokan Hall, and if you can tell us, what was FMW's involvement in the show?
So the last two shows for FMW at Kodokan Hall had Tenryu appearing on them as Hayabusa. The first show on June 16th, he appeared. It was a big surprise. He had the Hayabusa music played, and he came out with the Hayabusa mask and ninja pants and everything, and attacked Tenryu and helped H win. Helped H get the pinfall over Fuyuki. And then the next show on June 21st, Tenryu as Hayabusa appeared again, and Fuyuki actually ended up unmasking the Hayabusa mask off Tenryu, but eventually again H got the win over Fuyuki, and this was to set up the talk of Fuyuki versus Tenryu for July 13th. It was going to be War's 8th anniversary show, and War had at this point they had only run one time, pretty much, or one or two times in the previous year. So Tenryu's not really running War too much, but he wanted to have a special anniversary show for the summer. So on July 13th, he scheduled, booked a Kodokan Hall show, and it was going to be Tenryu versus Fuyuki. Well, Fuyuki decides, you know what? FMW would probably best benefit from this match happening, Fuyuki versus Tenryu down the line. So instead of Fuyuki versus Tenryu at the War anniversary show, they lent Hayabusa for the show instead. So Hayabusa was taking Fuyuki's place, and so Hayabusa was put in the place of Tenryu. But at this time, like I mentioned, he's H. So, but Ezuki is still going by the H name regularly, but Tenryu's like, no, I'm not having H on the show. I'm not going to wrestle H. He has to have the Hayabusa mask, and so I have to fight Hayabusa for this match to happen. So they agreed. So Ezuki this is the second match officially in Japan that Ezuki is going by the name, introduced as Hayabusa and everything. And so he takes on Tenryu, and it's a good match, and it's pretty much Hayabusa getting all his spots in and everything, but Tenryu getting all his spots in. It's not by any means a great match, but it's a good match, and eventually Tenryu ends up getting the win. Hayabusa was never going to be able to get a win over Tenryu or anything like that. Tenryu had way too much popularity / seniority, and it was his show, his promoted show and everything. So Tenryu ends up getting the win. Hayabusa takes the mask off, and they shake hands and everything. So this show was just kind of put together, not the last moment, but pretty short in advance, and put with Hayabusa taking Fuyuki's spot, so that Fuyuki pretty much didn't have to do the job to Tenryu. He felt like this could be, a better future FMW match, since they had been feuding in FMW.
And so the last show we talked about, Noah had split from All Japan, and the entire scene, of the wrestling business is changing. Where does Tenryu and FMW fit into all of this?
Yeah, so Tenryu right now is and this was going to be the last War show, other than they did a reunion show like 6 years later. This was the final War show. And so Tenryu is now going to take over pretty much as one of the top guys for All Japan, due to Misawa and all that leaving to form Noah. So this left All Japan pretty much just bare, having just a couple foreigners and Masafuchi and Kawada at this point. So Tenryu agrees to come in and begin working for All Japan regularly. And so it kind of put a halt to the whole Fuyuki-Tenryu feud, because Tenryu ends up disappearing for the next pretty much 9-10 months or so, and to work regularly in War, and he becomes a big, Tenryu's value actually goes up in the next year because of the whole All Japan split with Noah and everything. So Tenryu becomes, a top guy, and he's having a career resurgence and everything, having matches with Keiji Muto for the Triple Crown and everything. And, at this point, Tenryu has just so much seniority and so much popularity. as far as just his interaction with like the FMW side and everything, it's just when I show up, I can show up. I can, know I sell what I want to sell. I can no sell what I want to sell against all these wrestlers. Don't have my seniority, don't have my popularity. I can do what I want with, as far as my interactions with them, and I show up because I'm a draw, and FMW will need me if FMW calls, I can and really need me, I can show up or I cannot show up. And so, like I said, they kind of put this program on halt with Fuyuki for the future, or for the next pretty much almost a year later or so, just because Tenryu is kind of busy right now with the whole getting All Japan back on its feet.
All right. On July 20th, Onita ran a show at the Differ Ariake Stadium. If you can go over that show for us.
Yeah, that's the new building that Noah had owned when Misawa started up Noah and everything. They built this building. This building was bought by Noah, and so Noah actually owned this building and rented it off to other promotions. And Onita was So these are some of the first shows ever held at this new building and everything. And this show has the return of the Great Muta. He returns, from the previous year, back on August 99 when he lost to Muta, the Muta in the Exploding Ring Stadium match. Onita held a funeral for the Great Muta following the show. The Great Muta was dead. Well, Onita's decided he wants to revive the gimmick and everything. He wants to bring it back, and so he has a mid-card match with Ichiro Yaguchi. It was a barbed wire cross match, and it's pretty much just Nita getting his, blowing the mist and everything, getting the win over Yaguchi. Also on the show, Rai Nakamura, who had been a longtime FMW women's wrestler throughout the beginning of the promotion and everything. She was Bad Nurse, Nakamura, everything. She had a retirement match on the show against Miss Mongol, another former FMW women's wrestler. There's actually a really awkward finishing scene where pretty much Nakamura gets the pin 1-2, and then Mongol gets her arm up or gets her shoulder up, and regardless, the referee just gives the match to Nakamura anyway. So, Onita had some, there was definitely, some issues with and difficulties with the Onita Pro. They drew pretty well, and this show does pretty well. I mean, they're the Onita faithful, but the undercard matches are god awful. And I mean, it's definitely a throwback to the old FMW days where a lot of the mid-card and undercard matches are not good by any means. And, Onita's getting a lot of DDT wrestlers and just small indie Eagle Pro wrestlers and everything. And, so the main event of this show, though, is Atsushi Onita, Mitsunobu Kikuzawa, probably best known as Kikutaro, Exciting Yoshida, who's a low indie wrestler, and Naoshi Sano against Shoji Nakamaki, Ichiro Yaguchi, Great Kendo, who's Kendo Nakasaki under a mask, and Yase Yaguchi. And this is the no ropes barbed wire street fight death match, and they have the typical Onita spots and everything, and Onita ends up getting the win over Yaguchi, and this is pretty much just Onita getting his fix in of I want to be celebrated. I want these Onita theaters where everyone's screaming my name, and I want that attention and I want that love from the crowd. And I mean, Onita's pretty much having these shows because they're making decent money and everything, but also he's just getting that fix in of the crowd loving me, and it's just something that he obviously needs every so often, because if he goes too long without just being beloved by the audience, he ends up missing it, obviously.
All right. On July 22nd, H announces to the public that he's going to be going back to the Hayabusa character for good. Why didn't they want him switching between the two different characters?
Well, the H gimmick just never was really a draw. I mean, we go back to last episode where Fuyuki has that meeting and they go, we got to go back to Hayabusa. This is back in February. They realize we got to go back to Hayabusa. This H gimmick, the crowds have been going downhill as far as touring goes, and everything have been just dropping ever since we switched over. But we can't switch over right away because we have the posters and everything all lined up for the next 3 months or so, 3 or 4 months, with H on the cover and everything of the poster. And even the posters are even saying the former Hayabusa H on the show. They're still even trying to use Hayabusa as a gimmick, or as a marketing ploy that, hey, this is the guy that was Hayabusa, when they have H on the cover of a poster and everything. But but Japan is so loyal to the posters. You know, if you're on the poster, you got to be on the show and everything. And so they had all this production planned out for a couple months. Well, you know, it takes a couple months to get in advance that, hey, we no longer want to use H anymore. And so by July, you know, they had created all the brand new posters for Hayabusa and everything. So this was pretty much like the last show that needed to be promoted with H on the show. And so, you know, H pretty much just, gets on the mic afterwards. It's just a house show match, too. It wasn't even filmed or anything. And he gets on the mic and it's like, I'm going to become Hayabusa from now on. This is, you know, that the H gimmick is going to be no more after this show.
So going forward, FMW, they would run their next show on July 23rd at the Differ Ariake Stadium. If you can go over that show.
Yeah, so that was pretty much what happened, again, going back to the month prior, Mr. Ganosuke, we talked about it, how Mr. Ganosuke had, after Shin Fuyuki-gun had kidnapped Riki Fuji, and Mr. Ganosuke had brought him to the to Mount Fuji and everything for him to explode, and it turned out that Mr. Ganosuke didn't have the guts to kill Riki Fuji and have him blow up, so they took off, and somewhere in there the explosion happened anyway. And Mr. Ganosuke on June 21st meets up with Shoshi Arai and is like, I couldn't do it. I didn't, you know, Riki Fuji's still alive. And Shoshi Arai is really upset at Mr. Ganosuke. You know, you didn't get the job done pretty much. So he goes, you know, you need to fix this, your mistake. You need to kidnap Riki Fuji again. And so Mr. Ganosuke comes up with a plan. He gets with Kyoruko Arai, who we talked about again last episode, how she had helped Kanemaru become, like, she had given Hizukatsu Oya a sleeping pill, so he fell asleep and everything, because they didn't, you know, he didn't know that Kyoruko Arai had turned heel. And what happened was Flying Kitty Chihara had wanted to become a member of Shin Fuyuki-gun. So he had set up his girlfriend, Kyoruko Arai, to do all this, to set up, you know, help Kanemaru with giving give Hizukatsu Oya the sleeping pill. Now he's going to help Mr. Ganosuke kidnap Riki Fuji. And so what they do is Kyoruko Arai, he has his girlfriend, Kyoruko Arai, contact two of her girlfriends to meet up with Riki Fuji at a bar. And so Riki Fuji's at a bar, and two girls come up to him and start talking to him, and, hey, let's have drinks together. And so they're drinking and everything, and Riki Fuji's talking to him, but they slipped a pill in his drink. And 30 minutes later, Riki Fuji's passed out at the bar, and Mr. Ganosuke shows up and pretty much takes Riki Fuji off, and Riki Fuji has been kidnapped again. And Mr. Ganosuke comes out and shows this video package to the crowd and everything. And so Riki Fuji has been kidnapped again. And then going back to that Oya Kanemaru match, because of what, you know, Kanemaru had done to Oya with shaving his head and everything, and due to the sleeping pill and stuff like that, they have a rematch, and it's going to be a ladder match. And the winner gets Hizukatsu Oya's manager, the singer Tomomi Tanimoto, who had been accompanying Oya to the ring for the past year. And so this is a ladder match with a Hello Kitty stuffed animal as the prize that you had to grab, and Oya ends up grabbing it from Kanemaru. So Oya gets to keep his manager, and then going back to the June shows again, H had defeated Kodo Fuyuki twice, and as a result had won a shot at the WEW World Championship, Fuyuki's belt. Well, you know, because of Fuyuki and Shin Fuyuki-gun having Shoshi Arai with the pretty much be the booker and everything, Fuyuki goes, okay, I'm gonna give Hayabusa a shot at the title, but it has to be a gauntlet match. He has to defeat every member of Shin Fuyuki-gun before he can face me. And so he faces Hayabusa, you know, and this is again the return of Hayabusa under the mask full time, and he actually has a new design mask just for this show. It has a beak and everything. He never would wear it again. I guess he didn't like the extra mask to the mask. But so he ends up facing all of Shin Fuki-gun. He defeats Chocoball Mukai in 3 seconds. Mr. Ganosuke was actually too drunk to wrestle the show, so Mr. Ganosuke can't even compete on the show. Hayabusa defeats Kanemaru in just 3 minutes. Yoshinori Sasaki 3 minutes. Knocks out Hideki Osaka in 3 minutes. Faces Goemon and beats him in 6 minutes. Finishes off Kyoko Inoue in 2 minutes. So a total he ends up having 7 matches, but the total pretty much just goes about 14, 15 minutes or so. Then he gets to face Kodo Fuyuki finally, that he's defeated the whole Shin Fuki-gun, and he jumps the ropes and charges right at Fuyuki on the stage, and they're having a match, and it ends up, Hayabusa's definitely playing like he's tired and everything from having, 7 matches in 15 minutes prior and everything. And so Fuyuki has control of the match. Well, Masato Tanaka's music plays. Masato Tanaka had disappeared ever since the May 5th show against when he lost to Hayabusa, and he had disappeared and everything. Well, Tanaka reappears, comes to the stage, hits the ring, and hits Fuyuki with a rolling elbow and knocks Fuyuki out. Well, Hayabusa is looking like he's about to now get the win over Fuyuki when Jinsei Shinzaki comes to the ring, who, Hayabusa's partner all these years. He had watched the May 5th show from the crowd and just silently and done nothing and then walked away at the end of the match, but that was it. Well, Shinzaki ends up coming to the ring, and he attacks Hayabusa, and he lays Hayabusa out with a praying powerbomb and ends up setting up Fuyuki to get the win over Hayabusa. So Fuyuki gets to retain the WEW World title and has defeated Hayabusa. And now it looks like Jinsei Shinzaki has turned heel and joined the Shin Fuki-gun, while Masato Tanaka has returned back to FMW and is now a part of the FMW group again as a babyface. The ECW Japan group is completely dead.
All right. So, 1 or 2 quick questions. The whole the kidnapping angle video. Where did people see this? Was this aired on the monthly TV shows, or where did people see this?
Yeah, it was originally aired. Well, it was originally aired on the show on the video screen at Differ Araki, but then they showed highlights of it at the next show on the pay-per-view. They showed highlights because every pay-per-view they would show just kind of highlights of what's happened the big things that have happened over the previous couple weeks in FMW. So they would show the video package on the pay-per-view, and then they showed it on a commercial tape and everything like that.
Okay, and then one more. The Ganosuke being drunk, was that just some angle they were playing for the match?
It was and we'll go over here in a little bit. Ganosuke is still, not fully healed and everything from the knee injury, and as well as he still has internal issues. So this was just, and they didn't. So there was that aspect, but they also didn't want Ganosuke to just job and everything, and that was going to be the requirement to get through. Hayabusa would have to get through him, and they wanted to protect him, and so they didn't want to just have this single match where Hayabusa has already defeated 4 people, and now he's just defeating Ganosuke. So it was just a way to hide him and not have him lose or anything like that.
And, okay, so then we go on to July 28th, where FMW, they ran a show at Kuroken Hall, if you want to go over that for us.
Yeah, so this is the first ever Sky Perfect TV pay-per-view. We may mention, or we talked about it last episode, about how DirecTV went under pretty much, and DirecTV was paying FMW $800,000 a year to be able to broadcast on DirecTV. Well, DirecTV goes under, and FMW decides to negotiate with Sky Perfect TV, which is a much bigger pay-per-view company and everything. Problem was that, and again, they were making about $800,000, $600,000 through actually just getting paid. And then they would pay him $200,000 to for production costs and everything. Well, now it is it's been sliced up pretty much to where instead of $600,000, they're only making about $460,000 a year, and they're having to pay their own distribution cost and everything. But it is going to be on a bigger, like I said, bigger company, a bigger market and everything. And so they really do promote this show as this is a big show and everything. It's the first Sky Perfect TV and everything. It's our new deal, and but again, obviously not a better deal, but they end up selling this show out, and it's a typical announced as 2150, and is a full crowd and everything. Hideki Osaka and Yoshinori Sasaki, they're the WEW Hardcore Tag Team Champions. They're really kind of pushing them as as the best hardcore tag team in the promotion, and they end up again defeating the Samoans, Eddie Fatu and Matty Small. And a hardcore match. It just goes all over the building. They brawl all over Corrigan Hall. They actually even fight into the elevator outside Corrigan Hall, and it's just they end up fighting in the crowd, and they're really trying to build up, like I said, Yoshinori Sasaki here. That's the main focus of this tag team, is they really see potential in Yoshinori Sasaki. But Hideki Osaka ends up getting the win over Fatu, and so they will actually win back the WEW Hardcore Tag Team title. So like I said, they're just kind of the focus of this division. They win it, they lose it, they win it back, and everything. And then FMW had a working relationship with Pro Wrestling Noah. Fuyuki a month ago had, due to Misawa leaving All Japan and starting up Noah, Fuyuki had a relationship with Misawa, so Noah was going to work with FMW here in talent exchange, and so they let Masao Inoue and Yoshinobu Kanemaru challenge for the WEW tag team titles against Jado and Geto, and they would end up winning the tag team titles. Inoue would end up hitting a blockbuster on Jado to be able to get the win, and so Pro Wrestling Noah now is going to have the WEW tag team titles here, and FMW allowed this again. They wanted a relationship with Noah, but they also saw the WEW Hardcore Tag Team titles as really the more popular titles at this point, because there were better matches associated with them, and so they had and also again, just having two tag team titles, that allows the WEW tag titles, the regular ones, to be able to go to another promotion and everything, and they'll make Noah happy, and Fuyuki will get what he wants here at the end of the year. But having the WEW Hardcore Tag Team titles, it's not a big loss to lose the WEW tag titles to Noah for a little while. But anyway, so Inoue would end up getting a blockbuster suplex in Geto, actually, to get the tag to win the tag team titles, and then Goemon would take on Nahiko Yamazaki, who was at this point 2 years into the promotion. He was always just a job guy. Well, they decided they wanted to give him a comedy gimmick. He wasn't really ever he was never going to be this great wrestler or anything, but he was loyal, and they were loyal to him. So they gave him a gimmick where he saw UFOs and he could talk to aliens and things like that. They wanted like a X-Files kind of gimmick and everything. And so he's always like looking at the skies, looking for UFOs, calling for UFOs and everything. And this match is just to pretty much get that gimmick over against Goemon. He ends up kidnapping, or he ends up thinking he had kidnapped Goemon and put him in a body bag and everything. Well, it ends up turning out that, and he's beating the body bag, thinking it's Goemon. Well, it ends up he pulls the body out of the bag and it ends up being Emi Motokawa, and so he had ended up accidentally attacking the wrong person, and Goemon shows up, and again, it's just kind of get over both gimmicks. Like I said, Yamazaki has this gimmick where he's seeing UFOs, and then Goemon has this gimmick where he's this like thief, and he can appear and disappear at any time and everything. So it's a bad match. It was a 5-minute bad match, but it's just to get the gimmicks over pretty much. And then Tetsuhiro Kuroda takes on Kyoko Inoue. This is another a really bad match. It's a cooking death match, and this is probably the low point thing that FMW is doing. Even Shoshi Arai would admit this was probably a mistake, and he has these chefs that are making Japanese cuisine and Chinese cuisines and everything, and but the chefs are heel, and so during the match they're like shoving the food in Kuroda's mouth and everything. And crowd is just quiet for this. They're not reacting at all. They don't care. This is one of those this just completely flops. And like I said, the chefs are attacking Kuroda with the food, and some people actually got offended by these are traditional Japanese food that they're shoving in Kuroda's mouth and using it like it's, you know, nasty or something. So it actually upset people that they would actually do a gimmick like this. And like I said, crowd was not into this. Bad match. Kuroda ends up getting the win over Inoue. And then Kentaro Kanamura defends the WEW Hardcore title against Mike Samples. Mike Samples had been with Big Japan the previous year, and he got a contact with FMW saying, "Hey, if you work this FMW tour, you're going to get more money with FMW. We're going to pay you more than Big Japan's willing to." So Samples takes it up on that deal, and he ends up, working the tour and ends up having this match with Kentaro Kanamura. Well, Samples ends up regretting this afterwards because FMW never calls him back afterwards. And then he lost his relationship with Big Japan as a result. So he was pretty much done with Japan, just to have this one tour where he made more money thinking that FMW would keep bringing him back and touring with him or having him tour like Big Japan was. Well, he ended up pretty much being out of Japan as a result. But this match against Kentaro Kanamura is, it's another hardcore match. Kanamura is just bumping like crazy for Samples. Samples doesn't really do too much in this match. And it might be a reason why they didn't bring him back afterwards, because he didn't really do much. It was all Kanamura just being a ping pong ball and just getting thrown everywhere, he ends up getting thrown off the announcer table, off the stage, through a table, and hit with chairs and everything. And then Kanemaru ends up just using a schoolboy out of nowhere to get the pin over Mike Samples. And then the main event is Hayabusa, Hizugatsu Oya, and Masato Tanaka taking on Kodo Fuyuki, Jinsei Shinzaki, and Mr. Ganosuke. And like I said, Shinzaki had turned on Hayabusa during the 5 days earlier, and so now Shinzaki is with the Ganosuke and everything. And they do the Ganosuke and Shinzaki try and do the traditional like Hayabusa and Shinzaki spots here and everything, kind of like a mocking way. And Shinzaki ends up facing off against Hayabusa, and there's a cool sequence there where like Hayabusa does a cartwheel and Shinzaki does a kick at the same time, and so it's a really cool sequence, and it's a good match. I mean, it's not great by any means, but eventually what ends up happening is Shinzaki's about to send Ganosuke into Hayabusa at the corner. Well, then he ends up grabbing Ganosuke and bringing him back, and then Shinzaki delivers a Pele kick to Ganosuke. So now he has turned back against Ganosuke. It was all ruse and everything. And Shinzaki and Hayabusa end up doing their signature spots, and Hayabusa ends up hitting a Firebird splash and getting the win over Mr. Ganosuke. Ends up getting the pin with the Firebird splash. And again, this is probably one of the reasons that they didn't want Ganosuke jobbing 5 days earlier, was Ganosuke was about to lose to Hayabusa again, was going to lose to Hayabusa in the main event 5 days later anyway. And so, I mean, the one thing about this that didn't really make sense was the fact that why did Shinzaki turn on Hayabusa 5 days earlier, cost him the WWE title, if it was all a ruse and everything, and 5 days later he was just going to turn on Ganosuke to help Hayabusa win a tag match. That's one of the Fuyuki angles that didn't really make sense, because usually, I mean, regardless of how bad it is, it does make sense. This was one of them where it didn't even really make sense. But anyway, the stipulation to this match was, going back to the Ganosuke kidnapping Riki Fuji, Flying Kid Ichihara and Keoruko Arai had taken Riki Fuji to Mount Fuji, and they were going to, again, it was going to be like this blow-up thing, or, kill Riki Fuji if the Hayabusa team lost. Well, the Hayabusa team wins, and, and prior to this, you see Riki Fuji all tied up and everything with Ichihara and Arai in Mount Fuji and everything. Well, it ends up afterwards. Ichihara, or you see Ichihara and Arai comes back with the rope that they had tied Riki Fuji up with, and Arai says, "Yeah, so I walked away from Riki Fuji for a little while, and I wasn't paying attention, and he kind of got loose, and now he's gone." And so that's the ending of the show, where it's like, Riki Fuji is now, gotten away, and now he's lost in Mount Fuji. And so again, it's just kind of silly storylines pretty much. But this was the big show. Probably, the biggest Corrigan Hall, one of the two biggest Corrigan Hall shows of the year. But this is the Fuyuki FMW.
All right, we're going to talk about it lots over the next couple months here. We're going to jump forward. Now, Onita, he's been hyping a match. He's been doing the new Japan tour every few months. They throw him in against some kind of legend. And on July 30th, New Japan, they ran their first ever pay per view, and this is the match between Onita and Riki Choshu. I think this is one of the more famous non FMW matches he would wrestle. How did this match come off?
Well, yeah. So Onita ends up, we've talked about the past like 3 or 4 episodes where that's the match Onita always wanted. He wanted the match with Riki Choshu. Riki Choshu was retired, so Onita was having all these exploding barbed wire matches with Shono and Muta and Kensuke Sasaki, and none of them are actually turning out any good by any means as far as an actual match. And Onita and finally gets Choshu to agree. Choshu is coming out of retirement. He's going to have this match. They announced it for the Yokohama Arena for July 30th, and it sells out. I mean, it's standing room only, 18,000 people in a 16,000 seat building. So this, they've been hyping this match for, over 18 months at this point. And so it's a big deal. And what ends up happening is Choshu destroys Onita. It's the like I said, it is an exploding barbed wire match, and the explosives are they have high voltage, and Onita just gets killed in this match. Riki Choshu just destroys him. Choshu throws Onita into the exploding barbed wire. Pretty much every bump that was taken was by Onita. Onita gets cut up all over his arm. He's bleeding. There's even a spot Riki Choshu ends up putting Onita in the Scorpion Deathlock, and Onita has to grab the exploding barbed wire with his hand so that Choshu will break the move, but as a result, the explosion, Onita has an explosion on his hand as a result. So, this only just goes a couple minutes, and like I said, Onita's arm is cut up really bad in this match, and Choshu ends up just knocking him out with a lariat and pinning him in the middle of the ring. Onita, I don't even know if got an actual offensive move in the match. It was just pretty much Choshu destroying Onita, and that was the politics, and we'll go over here in a second. It was just Choshu, okay, I'll face you, Onita, this is the match you want, but I am not going to sell for you at all, and I'm going to just pretty much destroy you and get the win.
Now, I know the answer, sir, but it's like, Onita is drawing big money, in every match that we've gone over, they've drawn a lot of people and stuff. Why do they want to just run him into the ground? Wouldn't you want to keep him somewhat strong?
Well, Riki Choshu is the booker, and so and and we go back to he's a bigger legend than Onita. He's a big New Japan legend as far as just history. So he has more seniority than Onita, pretty much as well. He's been a bigger star than Onita longer. He's older. He's been around. He's a huge star and everything. He's New Japan, and that's a big thing. This is New Japan is better than Onita's FMW, and in the early 90s when Choshu was taking on Tenryu and Inoki and Fujinami and everything, having those matches, and Onita was having those matches against Tiger Jeet Singh and Terry Funk and everything in those exploding ring matches. This shows that strong style and real legit wrestling is real and is better than that exploding barbed wire crap and death matches and everything. But what happened was, though, to get Onita to agree to this, they paid him a lot of money. They paid Onita hundreds of thousands of dollars to agree to this, because Onita is going to go, okay, I'll do it, but you're going to pay me to do this. Onita's not just straight out going, okay, I'm just going to get squashed. The dream match I've had for 18 months, I'm just going to get squashed. No, you got to pay me a lot of money. And so they paid Onita so much money. It's actually is how Onita was able to use this money to be able to campaign to become a senator in Japan. He wouldn't have had the money to be able to win the election, but because New Japan paid him so many hundreds of thousands of dollars, he was able to run for the Japanese Diet and win as a result because of how much New Japan paid him. So it was, Onita was selling out, but it was selling out for his own cause. I'd rather look bad this one night and get destroyed against Choshu and get all this money and be able to run for become a politician, which is his main goal at this point. He wanted to become a politician.
That's awesome. I love that. Okay, so speaking of Onita, Makoto Baba, she announced that Onita was going to be coming in for all Japan. We'll talk about it as the matches come about. But what is the initial reaction from people when this is made public?
Yeah, so when when All Japan, all the wrestlers left, formed Noah, and All Japan was really in a bad situation. And I mean, we talked about Tenryu coming in, but they still had Kawada, and so Kawada is now pretty much the main seniority guy and everything. Kawada doesn't like Onita, and so Kawada and doesn't like it's the same thing as the Choshu thing, is that deathmatch crap. So Kawada is going, I don't want that. I don't want Onita. I want to have my style be. Kawada's going to be now the main focus as well as Tenryu. Kawada had always kind of been under the shadow of Misawa, and so with Misawa leaving, this allowed Kawada to become a top guy along with Tenryu, and so seeing Onita go, I want to come in, Kawada's going, I don't want him coming in. Then we're diluting the product with that deathmatch crap and everything, and that's not the All Japan that that Mr. Baba was about. Mr. Baba wouldn't have let Onita come in and have exploding barbed wire matches. Onita wanted to have a match with Baba at one time 2 years earlier, and Baba just laughed at him pretty much, even though Onita was Giant Baba's original son pretty much. So Kawada was not into it. Masafuchi had some say in it, and Fuchi and Onita were close. That's probably how the relationship of Onita being able to come back into All Japan. But at this point, it's.
So this is going to take us to August, where on August 20th, FMW they ran I'll never say this right. The Differ Ariake. Okay, thank you. Real quick, why are they running so many shows here? Did Noah just make the building very cheap to rent?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that is what it is, and it's a new building and everything. I went to it one time. I hated the building. You can't really see very well in it. I don't know. It's not a very good building. And as the years go by, a lot of promotions stop running there, I've noticed. But at the beginning, like every this was like the hot new Corrigan Hall and everything, and it's a smaller and cheaper Corrigan Hall. It's about an 1,800 seat building instead of the 2,000 seat building, but it's still in Tokyo. But it's another side of Tokyo. It's the south part of Tokyo, and so it could possibly create and have a different fan base coming in. It's closer to Yokohama, so maybe the Yokohama fans are coming in. Things like that. That was probably the original thought, but again, like you said, FMW had a working relationship with Noah, and so they might have allowed a cheaper rent as well. But they only ran up until about September, and so they only ran about three times or so, and then they stopped running it. But anyway, this match, and again, this is kind of also to have like a second big show of the month, instead of the Corrigan Hall pay-per-view, they're going to have a second big show of the month. But Kodo Fuyuki, because of Masato Tanaka coming in last month and attacking him during the Hayabusa match, Kodo Fuyuki, he announced on this tour that he was going to defend the WEW title on every show on this tour. So he ends up having a match against Hisagatsu Oya and Osaka that actually drew really well. He has a match with Tetsuhiro Kuroda in Sendai that didn't draw that well. And then he has this match against Masato Tanaka, and this is, Masato Tanaka coming back. Really, he didn't have, FMW wasn't really so high on Masato Tanaka after he came back. Tanaka went pretty much a year without jobbing after when he came back in 1999 and everything. And the only reason he did lose was to get the title off him and everything. And then, to lose against Hayabusa. Well, now they're just having him lose on the second big show of the not going to be protected. They're not as high on Masato Tanaka coming back, but Masato Tanaka agreed to come back out of loyalty and everything. And I mean, they might not have been happy with just the pay, as far as I know, because Tanaka required like the second highest payroll or pay, as far as wrestlers go. And Tanaka comes back and everything, and I don't know if we can really afford this second big paycheck and everything. But so he wasn't protected like he was, and he ends up losing to Fuyuki in this match. Shinjuku Shark appears in the Shinjuku Shark, who he was Hiroshi Asumi from the SPWF promotion, and he had wrestled a year prior in FMW. He comes out and he has a boxing has a boxing glove on fire. He comes in the ring and hits Tanaka with the boxing glove, and that ends up setting Fuyuki to be able to hit the charging lariat and get the win over Tanaka. And then so Fuyuki has gotten his win back over Tanaka 9 months later after the Yokohama Arena loss. And then we have the main events: Mr. Ganosuke, Kentaro Kanemaru, and Goemon against Hayabusa, Tetsuhiro Kuroda, and Hisagatsu Oya. And this match ends up having where Goemon ends up rolling up Kuroda with the Goemon clutch. And the loser, so on every show of this tour, the six-man, the Hayabusa, Mr. Ganosuke matches and all that, the loser had to get pie to the face. And so after the Hayabusa team loses, the Kanemaru and Ganosuke, the Hayabusa team has to sit in the ring on a chair, and Ganosuke, Kanemaru are throwing pies in their face and everything. And then they have the crowd come in, and so now fans in the audience are throwing pies at Hayabusa and everything. And then there's actually a spot where Fuyuki rushes back to the ring and just completely, or he's running down the aisle, and he completely just falls down, slips due to all the pie everywhere and everything. And so everyone's laughing at Fuyuki, and they only showed highlights of this, but they made sure to throw that highlight in there. Fuyuki just completely flopping and falling on his face and everything. But this ends up, a big brawl with all the wrestlers in the crowd, or all the wrestlers and everything. And Riki Fuji ends up appearing. He gets, he's on the mic and everything, and he's with Onryo. And Riki Fuji announces that he got lost in, when he got away from Flying Ichihara and Mount Fuji, he'd been lost for weeks. But Onryo, a ghost who had, he had an independent background. He had wrestled in Big Japan. He had wrestled in the Super J Cup earlier in the year, and so he had somewhat of a name value and everything for the independents. He had been wrestling for Wrestle Union Factory for the last 3 years or so. Well, FMW has signed Onryo, and so Riki Fuji announces that this ghost Onryo was around in Mount Fuji when Riki Fuji was lost, and Onryo helped Riki Fuji find his way out of Mount Fuji. Because if anyone's ever been to Mount Fuji, that is an enormous area where, that is, if you get lost, it's a complete maze, and you might be lost there for a long time. So the storyline is just Onryo has appeared and helped Riki Fuji get out of Mount Fuji, and Onryo is now going to join the FMW side for the baby faces.
All right, and then this takes us to the second show of the month on August 28th. They ran Kuroken Hall. If you want to go over that for us.
Another announced sellout. Again, and these, so these Korakuen Hall shows are doing well at this point, but or close to sellouts and everything. But it's just those house shows that are just killing, pretty much just killing the gate and everything, or killing, just zapping the money pretty much away from them. But anyway, so this show actually has Riki Fuji trying to find Flying Kid Ichihara. He's pissed off that, Ichihara had kidnapped him and, had him tied up in Mount Fuji and everything. And so he's looking for Ichihara. He runs into the locker room, and you just see Kaoruko Arai just sitting there. And, Riki Fuji has some words for her, he's still looking for Ichihara, and then you see Ichihara in the parking lot hiding and making his way out of the building as soon as possible, knowing Riki Fuji's trying to kick his ass pretty much. But anyway, so like I said, this is the tour where Kodo Fuyuki is defending all his WEW title every show. Well, on this show, he's going to defend the title against Captain Jack, who is a British singer who, I know I had never heard of him at the time, but he was apparently kind of big in Europe. I know he has a song or a couple songs on the Dance Dance Revolution game. That's probably where most people would actually know him from. But it's pretty much just he's a pop singer and everything. And I think, yeah. So he ends up having a match against Kodo Fuyuki. He comes to the ring with his singers and his dancers and everything, and they do a song before the show, and it's an entertaining song. The crowd's clapping their hands, and then Kodo Fuyuki comes out or attacks Captain Jack, and they proceed to have one of the worst matches of all time in 3 minutes. It's Captain Jack not even really able to get out of his jacket, and not even really able to run the ropes, and he's tripping and falling, and this just was a complete disaster for only going 3 minutes before Fuyuki gets him in the Fuyuki special, which is just pretty much just a submission hold. Captain Jack gives up, and like I said, it was a horrible 3 minutes, but anyway, they shake hands and everything. Fuyuki lets Captain Jack wear the belt, and they pose for the cameras and everything. But it was a god awful match. And then Kentaro Kanemaru and Goemon are scheduled to take on Masato Tanaka and Jinsei Shinzaki. Well, it turns instead of Shinzaki coming out, Mr. Ganosuke comes out, and it announces that Shinzaki didn't show up. He's working for All Japan now. He doesn't really love, he has no loyalty to the FMW crowd or anything like that. And so Masato Tanaka Anryo ends up coming out instead to team up with Masato Tanaka. So it's Kentaro Kanemaru and Goemon taking on Masato Tanaka and Anryo, like I said, the newest FMW wrestler. And, this is a way more of just to show Anryo's skills and everything to the FMW audience. And he has a creative offense where he ends up catching the referee's count. When he's counting the 3 count, Anryo will catch his arm instead of the referee counting the 3. And then when the other wrestler gets upset, like Kanemaru gets upset over the referee not counting the 3, Anryo will then kick you, kick the back of your leg, and then roll you up for an Anryo clutch. And but Kanemaru would end up kicking out, and eventually Kanemaru would end up getting the win with the Human Torch over Anryo. And so, as this match ends, then you see Jinsei Shinzaki appear in the parking lot. Someone's taking Shinzaki to the building. This is never exactly said, but it's kind of hinted that Ganosuke and the Shinfiki-gun sabotaged Shinzaki to where he was not able to actually make it to the match and everything because they were pissed off from the month prior. And so Shinzaki is rushing to the ring. He ends up calling Ganosuke out, and Ganosuke comes to the ring, and they end up brawling brawling all around ringside and everything. When Hayabusa's music plays, and Hayabusa comes out, and he attacks Ganosuke because this is the main event. Was scheduled Hayabusa and Mr. Ganosuke, and but Kentaro Kanemaru and Goemon from the previous match, they stay outside the whole time. So this match is pretty much 3-on-1. It's not a good match, but it's a really entertaining match. This is, Hayabusa and Ganosuke put on better matches, but this is more just entertainment because I would say, a successful, entertaining match. They roll up Hayabusa with the ring mat outside the ring. They roll him up like a taco and everything, and they sit on him and mock him by kissing each other and everything. And Hayabusa ends up fighting back and ends up hitting the H Thunder on Ganosuke. Like I said, it wasn't a great match, but it was an entertaining match. But Hayabusa, and this would actually turn out to be the final Hayabusa versus Mr. Ganosuke singles match between the two. So Hayabusa would end up getting the win with the H Thunder, and as a result, because of defeating Mr. Ganosuke, Hayabusa has now earned himself another shot at the WEW title, and he's going to now get another match against Fuyuki for the next month's show at Corrigan Hall.
Now, around this time, you started writing that the angle for Mr. Ganosuke is that now, and I'm going to ask you about how this plays out, but it's that he basically, he doesn't like the entertainment wrestling, and he's starting to voice this in public. He's starting to challenge Shoshi Arai's judgment. Is this an angle, or is it real, or how is this kind of playing out?
It's an angle. We can talk about it more as we go into the details of the shows and everything. But yeah, no, this is an angle. Ganosuke was he needed time off, and this was eventually a way to lead to him getting time off. So it's just what they had booked for him. Ganosuke, a lot of the wrestlers were upset over the entertainment aspect, but Ganosuke is not one of them. He is someone that's just whatever. If you want to have a deathmatch promotion, I'll be a deathmatch wrestler. If you want to have entertainment wrestling, I'll be an entertaining wrestler and everything. So Ganosuke was just kind of down for whatever type of style FMW was willing to do. But yeah, they came up with him being the one, even though he wasn't really the one. Like I've mentioned, Kanemaru wasn't the biggest fan. Riki Fuji, Hizugatu Oya, they weren't the biggest fans. I'm sure other wrestlers weren't the biggest fans of this style. Jado Ghetto, I know they hated it. But Mr. Ganosuke is one that just I'm down for whatever type of wrestling you want, I'll do it. And so, but they chose him as a storyline explanation to be able to, so he could take some time off.
All right. So this goes forward on September 7th. FMW debuted some newer wrestlers. Who were they?
So FMW for the last 2 years or so had not debuted any no rookies. Like no one that came in through the dojo. And that was a big thing that Shoshi Arai was really, he kept the dojo alive, even though it was costing them a lot of money to keep it alive and everything. FMW is struggling financially, obviously, and this FMW dojo is costing them a lot of money, and they haven't even no one's came out from the school in the last 2 years since Naohiko Yamazaki back in January '98. Well, so they let they start looking for new students and everything, and three people end up graduating through the dojo, and they were Tomokazu Morita, who was a big Hayabusa fan in the mid '90s and everything, and there's actually footage of him screaming, being a fan in the crowd in Chiba, cheering for Hayabusa. So he was been a Hayabusa big Hayabusa fan for 4 or 5 years at this point. Yoshihito Sasaki, he had been an Animal Hamaguchi student, and so he had prior training before joining the FMW dojo. He's probably best known for becoming a Big Japan wrestler about 10 years ago or so, and then. And he was a big Masato Tanaka fan. And then Satoru Makeda, he was a big Hayabusa fan as well. And so these three end up graduating through the FMW dojo, and they're now going to become, the three rookies, and they have opening matches against Shakuba Mukai and everything. But there's going to be as FMW ends, they're going to play a part, or at least Sasaki and Morita are going to play a part of at the end of FMW.
Now, here's a story that I forgot ever happened, and I always wondered what this was about. On September 12th, Hayabusa, he flew to Virginia, and he did a photo shoot with a couple WCW staff. He did a photo shoot with like Kevin Nash and a few other guys, and also Mike Awesome. Why was he at this taping, and why was he taking these photos?
The plan was for Hayabusa to appear at the New Japan Tokyo Dome show on January 4th, 2001. He was going to form a dream tag team with the Great Muta. And so he wanted to meet up with Muta, who was wrestling in WCW regularly at the time. And so Hayabusa went over to Virginia, where they were doing worldwide tapings. And he was going to, WCW had, he had to come up with an agreement through John Laurinaitis. John Laurinaitis was a big Hayabusa fan, and Laurinaitis at this time had, working in All Japan in the mid '90s and everything as Johnny Ace. He had found respect for Hayabusa because Hayabusa was really popular at the time that Johnny Ace was popular in Japan, and so John Laurinaitis let Hayabusa come in, appear backstage, and Laurinaitis agreed to have Hayabusa work a match, just work a WCW match on Worldwide, and on top of that, he'd get his photo op with Great Muta to set up the pictures in the magazines to promote Hayabusa and Muta teaming up at the Tokyo Dome as the dream tag team. Well, anyway, so Hayabusa is going to have this match against the Frog on WCW Worldwide. I mean, they're not going to give him too much time. Hayabusa meets with Kevin Nash, he meets with Vince Russo and everything, and he's supposed he's all dressed up, he's going to have this match with the Frog, and it's going to be a squash on Worldwide, no big deal or anything like that. Well, it turns out that Virginia they require blood tests be done and everything like that for you to be able to wrestle in the state. And Hayabusa wasn't told that. WCW never told him that. And so he ends up not being able to appear or not able to wrestle on the show. WCW didn't really care too much. I mean, it was just like, whatever. It was just some worldwide match for some guy that no one in the audience was going to know anyway. So they didn't really care all that much. And I mean, it really was just going to be a favor that John Laurinaitis was doing for Hayabusa. But it was, it just didn't end up happening. But Hayabusa ended up getting his photo op with Muto at the hotel afterwards and everything. But the match never ended up happening for New Japan anyway.
Now, do you know, was he kind of like, was he bummed about not being able to do the match?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he was. He went there. I mean, pretty much like, hey, at least have a match, on WCW and everything. So, I mean, like I said, the main goal was to get the pictures with Muta to set up the match, or set up the tag match. But, it was also kind of one of these like, oh, okay, have a match with WCW and everything. And just something that, I'm sure he wasn't heartbroken over it by any means, but it was something of like, oh, I got all dressed up and ready to have this match, and nothing ended up happening as a result because I wasn't told in advance.
Do you know who the Frog was going to be?
No, I think he was a WCW Worldwide jobber at the time anyway. I think he had been wrestling and everything. Like on that, this is late 2000s, so this is the end of WCW, and I think just Worldwide, he had just been a jobber at that point. But I don't know enough about late 2000 WCW. It was a really bad product at that time to follow, let alone Worldwide stuff. But I do believe that he was a regular wrestler on Worldwide. And you ask about Hayabusa, was he bummed? I'm sure he was bummed, but I'm sure also he was probably just bummed that he was going to find out he was going to wrestle the Frog instead. Hey, I met up, Worldwide was taking place the same night as Thunder at that time. So Thunder was taped, and, Mike Awesome was there. Hey, they could have had a Mike Awesome versus Hayabusa match, if they wanted to and everything. And, I'm sure that was something that he would have probably actually been really stoked for. So, I'm sure he was just bummed out to find that he was going to wrestle the Frog to begin with, and then found out, oh, I can't wrestle anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it just writes itself to have a 1 week challenger for Mike Awesome. You're right. I have one more question about it, which is how far into planning was the January 4th match? Because FMW, they're working with Noah. Was there how do they politically get these different companies to be okay with sharing talent from the same pool?
The Noah relationship wasn't anything, but I mean, it was just mid-card, pretty much the mid-card Noah guys being able to work FMW, and then Fuyuki getting to work the big show and everything. So, I mean, if anything, if the FMW relationship with Noah ended, it wasn't going to really affect FMW by any means. And so Hayabusa getting to wrestle on the New Japan Tokyo Dome show was a much bigger deal. I don't think Noah would really have cared anyway, but I mean, FMW would just, worst case scenario, and Misawa doesn't, Misawa's not shady or anything. I mean, he wasn't gonna oh, my guys are just never gonna drop the belts or anything, back to your promotion. He's gonna play by the rules. But even if he hadn't, I mean, what's the worst that's gonna happen? FMW just vacates, just say the Noah guys have vacated the titles and get the titles back and everything. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time the WWE tag titles would be vacated. It wouldn't be the last. So, I mean, it's just one of those, this would have been a much bigger deal to have Hayabusa get to wrestle at the Tokyo Dome with the Great Muta than to have, the whole, mid-card Noah guys take on Fuyuki and Kuroda at a big Noah show. So, but again, I don't think it would have affected it anyway.
One more question about it. So, how did Hayabusa and Muta, where did the relationship come from? Did they cross paths at some show?
No, I don't necessarily know. No, they wouldn't have crossed paths by any, because like I said, Muta at this time was in America. He was wrestling for WCW regularly, so he's touring across the country at this point. And so it was probably just maybe a New Japan idea where, hey, Hayabusa, if you want to work this show, you can come, if you want to work the Tokyo Dome and everything, we'll pay you. You come on in and everything, team up with Muta. But, because again, this is September, we're still 3 or 4 months away. And so they were just beginning the stages of having, just getting this off the ground. And so, hey, Hayabusa, fly to America, Muta's touring with WCW, meet him up at the hotel, take some pictures and everything of you guys at the bar together at the hotel, and that'll show that you guys have formed this friendship. And they talked about it afterward. Like there's pictures of them at the hotel talking and everything, and that's they agree. So like I said, I would imagine that it was New Japan's idea of, hey, Hayabusa, we want something to stand out for this show, because New Japan at this time, 2001, they're starting to, they're really getting affected by the whole bubble bursting and everything. 2001 wasn't the best year for New Japan, and so they just see Hayabusa as something possibly to help the Tokyo Dome show look more special.
All right, so this takes us forward on September 15th in Saitama. One of the wrestlers, he changes his name, and I'll let you go over the story, and who he would go on to be throughout time.
Yeah, Yoshinori Sasaki would go by Mammoth Sasaki. That was a name that he had given to at the FMW dojo when he had started up. He was a sumo wrestler back in the day, before he was an FMW wrestler, and so he went by the name Mammoth when he at the dojo. That was his nickname and everything. Well, with Yoshihito Sasaki debuting, they saw those two names as way too similar. Yoshihito Sasaki and Yoshinori Sasaki, too similar. And Yoshihito Sasaki, that usually they want the rookies to go by their real names and everything. Well, and hey, Yoshinori Sasaki's already gone by this Mammoth name, and with the change to the Mammoth Sasaki name, we're going to give him a push. He's been kind of just this, we see potential in him. He's just been kind of this guy that's either undercard or midcard, and he's just been having hardcore matches where we're going to really start pushing him up the card and everything to become an actual, have value to his matches and everything. And so he debuts as Mammoth Sasaki on September 15th in a match where he has a competitive match against Masato Tanaka. He ends up losing to Masato Tanaka, but he has a competitive match. Then he has a match against Hayabusa 2 days later on September 17th, and it's another competitive match. Sasaki is putting Hayabusa through a table and everything, and so he's getting legitimate offense in and everything. So he's losing, and this is the way a lot of Japanese do it, where we push you by having you lose in competitive matches to star names and everything. So you're losing because Hayabusa or Masato Tanaka, they're a bigger name and they have more seniority, and they're not going to lose to you, but we're going to pull you we're going to bring you up by having competitive matches, and and then your time comes, and after a couple of years of losing to these value in these value big name matches and everything, then eventually you get the win and everything. And that's just how the Japanese book, and so that was their style. They're gonna push up Mammoth Sasaki to be one of the top guys, and so he's having competitive matches and everything, but losing to the likes of Masato Tanaka and Hayabusa.
All right, this takes us to September 21st, where FMW, they ran a show at the Sapporo Green Dome. Now, this is going to be one of the bigger shows. If you want to go over that for us.
So this was like you said, this is the Sapporo Green Dome. After the Sapporo Nakajima Sports Center had closed down a year earlier, FMW had always ran in the spring and always ran in the fall a big Sapporo show. Well, back in April, they just didn't have the lineup that they felt that they could have a big match in Sapporo, and so they just had two shows at the ZEP Sapporo show. Well, now they feel like they have a match with Hayabusa against Kodo Fuyuki that will draw very well at the Sapporo Green Dome, which, like I said, is another big building in Sapporo, 6,500 seat building and everything. And so they have a pretty filled out card and everything, and they have a match for the WEW Hardcore Tag Team titles, a three-way ladder match. Jado, Geto, and going up against Hideki Osaka and Mammoth Sasaki, and Kentaro Kanamura and Ryuji Yamakawa, who are now partners after the May 5th Kanamura Yamakawa match and everything. This is a really cool match. Yamakawa does a moonsault off a ladder, and I mean, like I said, these WEW Hardcore Tag title matches are really entertaining or really good, especially when you add someone like Kanemaru and Yamakawa to the mix and everything. And Mammoth Sasaki and Hideki Osaka are willing to put their bodies through the through everything, and so like I said, everyone's going through tables and there's chairs and everything. But eventually, Geto ends up getting a super kick on Kanemaru and ends up winning the WEW Hardcore Tag Team titles. So Mama Sasaki and Hideki Osaka lose the titles even though they didn't get pinned. So they're really upset afterwards for not even for not even taking the fall in the match and then lose the titles. And then the semi-main events: Masato Tanaka, Tetsuhiro Kuroda, and Onryo against Mr. Ganosuke, Goemon, and Shinjuku Shark. Now, going back to September 15th, 2 days earlier, Mr. Ganosuke, Kodo Fuyuki, and Shinjuku Shark, they were the WEW six-man tag champions. Well, they end up losing to the team of Jado, Geto, and Kaori Nakayama, who, was a women's wrestler that had aligned herself with Jado and Geto, and so they became a six-person team and everything. They fight for the belts. Well, in this match, Kaori Nakayama goes low on Kodo Fuyuki and then ends up rolling him up. So Fuyuki ends up taking the loss to Kaori Nakayama, a woman, and Jado, Geto, and Nakayama win the WEW six-man titles. Well, this really upsets Ganosuke that he lost to a girl. Fuyuki, you just lost to a girl. So he starts shoving Fuyuki and everything. So he's really upset. So there's now definitely dissension between Ganosuke and the rest of the Shin Fuyuki-gun. And so during this match, Masato Tanaka ends up getting the win over Shinjuku Shark, and Ganosuke is upset at Shinjuku Shark and everything. So he's now really upset just at the whole group itself. And so Ganosuke is now doing this gimmick where he's just pissed off at the whole group and everything. And so he's starting to kind of wean away from the heel Shin Fuyuki-gun. And then the main event is Kodo Fuyuki against Hayabusa. This is the 15,000 volt Thunderbolt cage match. This is not for the WEW title, but this is a really cool match. Hayabusa, so Fuyuki, has a creative start to the match. So what he does is, at the beginning of the match, he takes off his robe and he throws it into the cage, causing this huge explosion. And then he hits a charging lariat on Hayabusa right away, who's like stunned by the huge explosion. And Fuyuki almost gets a 3 count in, with the win just seconds into the match. But Hayabusa would be able to kick out, and the explosions are a lot more impressive. They put a lot more voltage into the cage for this show than they did the Yokohama Arena show back on November against Tanaka and Fuyuki. But Hayabusa ends up taking this bump where Fuyuki picks him up like he's going to do a power bomb and just tosses him into the cage with this huge explosion going off. And then Hayabusa does a spot where, then there's a spot where Fuyuki suplexes Hayabusa into the cage. So they're taking a lot more dangerous spots and everything. And like I said, the voltage is a lot higher for this match. But eventually Fuyuki gets thrown into the voltage and he gets knocked out, or thrown into the cage, and the voltage is so much that he gets knocked out. And Hayabusa ends up hitting a Firebird splash and getting the win over Fuyuki 5 days prior to him challenging for the WEW championship against Fuyuki.
All right. Now, we went over before the price that went into the explosion before. What did this Thunderbolt cage match cost them?
Well, yeah. So they'd already purchased it for the Yokohama Arena show. So there wasn't, other than adding the extra voltage and everything, there wasn't too much to it. But it when they originally bought the cage, it cost them $100,000 for the Yokohama Arena show. So that went into the Yokohama Arena budget and everything. So pretty much all they needed to do was just store this cage and then, add some voltage, add more voltage and everything. But they'd already spent a majority of the money. It's kind of like when WWE uses like the Elimination Chamber and everything. They put all that money down originally, and then every time they use it is just they're using it again. They've already bought it and they just need to store it. So that's what this kind of was. They've already put a majority of the money down. They spent $100,000. They're going to use it again. If I were them, I would have used it more just because of how much money it costs to be able to use it and everything.
All right. On September 24th, Onita, he ran a private show at the Differ Ariake Stadium. If you can go over that for us.
Yeah, so at the beginning of this show, Onita actually does some like one of the kind of like the FMW entertainment skits or video packages before the show, where Onita's aunt is at a she's selling something at a store, like it's like a street store pretty much, like outside and everything. And Shoji Nakamaki and Nobutaka Arai appear, and they like push her down and everything, and they're like completely harassing her and everything. And they end up making her sign this document and everything, and so they're just pretty much just harassing her, like I said. And so this is just to really put them over as heels and everything, to set up for the main event of the show, which was and Atsushi Onita, Sambo Asako, Exciting Yoshida, and Naoshi Sano against Shoji Nakamaki, Ichiro Yaguchi, Viking Taniguchi, and Yase Yuguchi. It's a no ropes barbed wire weapon street fight death match and everything. And so this again, this just this typical Onita barbed wire match and everything, with Onita getting the win and everything. And they actually when Onita gets the win, they show Onita's aunt in the crowd and everything, crying with how excited she is that her nephew has won. And then afterwards you see Onita backstage, and he's hugging his aunt, who's just so over emotional with the fact that Onita has defeated Shoji and Nakamaki. So it's pretty much just a way to get Nakamaki and everything over as a heel, as this dastardly heel. So like I said, Onita's kind of actually trying some of the Fuyuki. I would consider this more of a Fuyuki booking than Onita booking, but Onita's kind of trying a different type of style of trying to get over a heel and let me get over as the big baby face.
Okay, so going forward, the next show is going to be FMW, where they ran Kuroken Hall on September 26th. If you want to go over that for us.
So this show was on September 26th, was announced at 2,100 fans, so that was close to a sellout. But this is one of the bigger shows of the year as far as the main event and everything, and it's pretty crowded. But they have the match. So anyway, so before the matches start, Tetsuhiro Kuroda is coming up the stairs with a Japanese baseball player who's been invited to the show and everything. He's going to appear. And Kuroda's going to have a match against Mr. Ganosuke, a tag match and everything. Well, Mr. Ganosuke comes in, and he sees Kuroda with the baseball player. He takes a baseball bat, and he attacks Kuroda with it and starts beating him with the ribs and everything with the baseball bat, leaving Kuroda lifeless pretty much, and the baseball player having to call for help and everything. So this leads to, Mr. Ganosuke and Goemon taking on Onryo, coming out by himself, and the baseball player who Kuroda is with. And the baseball player is acting like he's going to, wrestle in place of Tetsuhiro Kuroda. And Ganosuke, who's dressed up like a baseball player himself and everything, mocking I didn't pick up his name, the Japanese baseball player. He's mocking him by dressing up like the baseball player and everything anyway. So he's like, yeah, come on, let's fight. Yeah, you want to come in my world? Let's fight. Well, Kuroda ends up coming out and everything. He's ribs all bandaged and everything. So he takes the place of the baseball player. And Mr. Ganosuke is ruthless against Kuroda and just pretty much just destroys him. And he ends up making Kuroda tap out. It's a short little match and everything. And afterwards, Mr. Ganosuke is still just, beating up on Kuroda and everything, and Shoshi Arai, comes out, and Ganosuke gets on the mic, and he is so upset over the entertainment style of pro wrestling. All the, this style of FMW is just, it's crap now. You have baseball players, you have chefs coming to the ring. This isn't real wrestling, and I'm sick of this. I'm sick of how this is. And, like I said, Ganosuke has been so upset over, this stuff. He's also, during this match, he ends up just throwing Goemon out of the ring, or throwing Goemon, his own partner. So Ganosuke, and Shoshi Arai is supposed to be, the heel, pretty much the heel manager for Shinfuki. So this is Ganosuke pretty much just breaking away completely from the Shinfuki-gun, just really upset over the entertainment style. Shoshi Arai goes, hey, this is what's selling. Entertainment style of wrestling is what sells us, is selling the tickets and everything. We need, to keep going this way of this style. This is what FMW, the direction we're going in. So Ganosuke gets upset and everything, and lariats Shoshi Arai. And Ganosuke, the crowd is actually cheering and everything, and Shoshi Arai gets on the mic and announces Mr. Ganosuke has been fired from FMW. And so this really upsets Ganosuke that he's been, he got fired and everything. And so now Ganosuke has put on he's going to seek revenge on FMW and Tetsuhiro Kuroda, feeling like, hey, because of all this, because, Kuroda, you're hanging out with this baseball player and, you're fighting with chefs and everything. You're embracing this entertainment style, and, Shoshirai and the FMW, you're all, this is stupid. I'm going to, pretty much get my revenge on you. And so Ganosuke's been fired, but he's going to end up appearing at the next couple shows. And then Kodo Fuyuki and Hayabusa, they have a 60-minute Iron Man match. This is probably I would say the best match of FMW in 2000. I really like this match. Kodo Fuyuki and and Hayabusa, they end up wrestling for pretty much 27 minutes before there's even a deciding pin, and it ends up being Kodo Fuyuki getting the win, or getting the first pinfall over Hayabusa. And then right afterwards, because he's finally knocked Hayabusa out, he gets another pin right away on Hayabusa. So just in like 30 seconds, Kodo Fuyuki now has like this 2-0 lead and everything. And after about 30 minutes or so, Hayabusa takes the mask off, and he ends up bleeding during this match, and he ends up they kind of brawl all over the building and everything. This is actually, Hayabusa stated this was his hardest match he's ever been a part of. He wasn't really the best in shape. Kodo Fuyuki actually towards the end, you could tell, is actually carrying Hayabusa, because Hayabusa is completely out of gas at this match. He is just done for. He just wasn't ready to have a 60-minute match. But Fuyuki actually does an amazing job kind of getting through the last part of the match. But like I said, this is, it's not a 5-star match by any means, but I really enjoyed it. It's in the 4-star range, I would say, and probably, like I said, one of the best matches of the year. But anyway, so Hayabusa comes back and he gets a win. He gets a pin over Fuyuki, and then Fuyuki ends up, so now it's 2-1 Fuyuki. Well, then Fuyuki gets a 3-1 lead, but he just starts planning on just knocking Hayabusa out and leaving him outside the ring. And so, he buries Hayabusa with chairs and everything, and Hayabusa can't get it in the ring. And then so Fuyuki now has a 3-1 lead, and Hayabusa has to make this comeback, and he does. He ends up getting a Samson clutch, Fuyuki's own move on Fuyuki for one of the pins. And he ends up getting a Firebird splash and ties it up about the 45-minute mark or so. And so now it's tied 3-3 with 15 minutes left to go. Like I said, Hayabusa is exhausted at this point. Fuyuki's still able to keep the pace of the match going and everything, and hitting really cool moves. And they end up fighting for pinfalls at the very end. Just in the very last minute or so, it's Hayabusa just trying to get a win, the last pinfall over Fuyuki. He hits an H-edge on Fuyuki with just seconds to go, covers Fuyuki, and as the referee is counting, the 60 minutes is time limit has now ended. The match will end at 60 minutes, tied 3-3. So no one wins, no one loses. Fuyuki gets to keep his title, and Hayabusa and Fuyuki embrace afterwards for having that type of match. They really end up showing respect towards one another. And like I said, they hug, they handshake and everything. And Hayabusa asks for a rematch, and Fuyuki says, yeah, I'll give you one more match.
All right. And so I have a few quick questions about it. How is the health of the roster right now?
Yeah, so Hayabusa is it's about to get officially announced, but Hayabusa his elbows are killing him. But they've been killing him for years, but now it's getting to where it's unbearable. That was the whole reason that he wanted to get rid of the Hayabusa gimmick, was those Firebird splashes and everything just killed his elbows all those years and everything, and he didn't want to do the high flying moves. Well, at the point, then he becomes H, and then, oh, hey, bring back the high flying moves, and so H is still having to do the Firebird splash after a couple months. Then it's like, well, we want Hayabusa back. Well, then he's got to go back to Hayabusa, so now he's going back and doing the Firebird splashes every show, and so his elbows are just killing him. And then like I may mention, Mr. Ganosuke, he's having all these issues. His knee is still messed up. He's got some he still has liver issues and everything, and so he's still really in bad shape. So those are two main stars right there that are not doing too well physically.
And then about the angle with Ganosuke, when they're talking about, hey, the entertainment is selling tickets and stuff, you know, what is the relationship between the companies and the fans when it comes to like kayfabe?
Well, as far as kayfabe, it's still they're still keeping up with it and everything at this point. The heels still have to get on the heel bus. The faces still have to get on the face bus. You can't see. Okay, so Hayabusa and Ganosuke, they're feuding. Well, they can't just be seen hanging out in public together. That's still something that's that FMW kept with until the very end. The business was changing obviously around this point, but it was a little slower with Japan, and FMW itself stayed loyal to keeping kayfabe until the promotion ended. It was still keeping kayfabe. And the characters and everything, the wrestlers stayed. Hey, if I'm feuding with Hayabusa, I'm feuding with Ganosuke. I can't, I'm not friends with Ganosuke and hanging out with him and stuff like that. But anyway, but the fans knew. Majority of the fans know, like, this is predetermined and everything. This isn't, Hayabusa doesn't really hate Mr. Ganosuke in real life, especially after, some of these storylines are so, like, of course, in real life, you don't, my childhood friend hates me now, and now we're friends again, and now randomly he hates me again, and now, things like that, where they're just turning so many people to keep things fresh so often, no one really is going to believe that, that entertainment style wrestling, the fans that are fans of entertainment style wrestling don't actually believe, like, wrestling is, real or, have legitimate determinations and all that. So, but they, that's just how, at this point, all the wrestlers were brought up. Most of these wrestlers are, started in the 80s or 90s, and, most in the 90s, but Fuyuki in the 80s. That's how what you learned. You got to keep the business, you got to protect the business. And so, you still have a bunch of wrestlers that's how they were, and they're not going to be the ones to change that style.
So when you have them openly discussing, like, the storylines, and they're discussing the writing sucks and blah blah, like, how do the fans take this?
Well, it's not really necessarily the writing sex. What they're, in a kayfabe way, it still makes sense because Ganosuke is frustrated that they're bringing baseball players into the show. They're bringing chefs to have these cooking death matches and everything like that. That's what Shoshi Arai is doing. That's this entertainment style and everything like that. So, in a kayfabe sense, Mr. Ganosuke is legitimately, has a legitimate thing of, hey, Shoshi Arai, we're supposed to be partners. You're a heel, I'm a heel, but you're the boss, and you're inviting this chef in for a cooking death match, and you're all these stupid storylines and everything. You're the one obviously booking these, so I'm frustrated. Why can't we have these type of matches, or this type of style, instead of this stupid crap? And so that's where there is a kayfabe sense to the entertainment aspect, even though the fans obviously don't believe that it's real.
Okay, and going forward, around this time, like, this is just a question. Onita announces that he's going to start, that he wants to put on matches on U.S. Bases in the country, because then he wouldn't, if he retired in Japan, if he's not technically in the country, if he's on the bases, it's technically a different country. This is one more way around his, like, retirement loopholes. Did he ever actually do this?
No, I've never heard of this. I know it was in the Observer and everything, and that was Dave's explanation of Onita retiring. But here's the thing, pretty much if you read the Observers around this time period, pretty much every time Onita or Dave talks about Onita, he's referring to him retiring. I mean, he's going to have this big match with Riki Choshu, and Dave is saying he's pretty much, he's going to retire. Like, Onita didn't retire that many times. I mean, the joke, and maybe Dave feels that he retired so much because every time he's talking about Onita, and Onita might be talking about retirement. I don't know. I wasn't following Onita's interviews in 2000 or so, but there was no retirement. There was no actual retirement from Onita in 2000. Now, as far as having this U.S. base match, or having a match in I guess Okinawa on a military base, he might have talked about that and everything, but it didn't end up happening or anything like that. But Onita only, as far as all the jokes that Onita goes, he only, had 3 legitimate, like, I made money, and this is, by no means, I mean, Onita calls himself Mr. Liar for a reason, but he said he said 7 retirements, but 3 of them were like legitimate. I'm making money off this retirement show, and that would have been the '95 Kawasaki Stadium show, the 2005 Corrigan Hall show that he promoted and as a retirement show, and then this last year, the Corrigan Hall show in 2017. Every other time was either like a loser leaves, he had a loser, or if he loses, he retires match in Michinoku Pro. He had a small indie show retirement, and then, his first retirement in All Japan, that was just a ceremony, things like that. And one of them was just, he just announced it and everything, but anyway, but there was no retirement in 2000. Again, and he might be just so broken down, I mean, in so much pain and everything at this point that he's talking about it all the time. I don't know, but he didn't actually retire in 2000. So as far as having a loophole on this retirement that he's just talking about, I don't see that as actually taking place, because what's the point? Why am I going to create a loophole when I'm just talking, when I'm not even making money off this retirement or the ceremony or anything like that, or making it a big deal or anything like that? Because, I mean, like I said, he had a retirement on a small indie show in 2010. He pretty much told the crowd, yeah, you know what, this is a retirement, but I'm coming back. I'm coming back. I know I'm coming back. And he did 6 months later. It's just sometimes he just needs time off and everything when he does this stuff. But as far as an actual, like, oh, I need to come up with a loophole so I can get out because I've changed my mind and I don't want to retire. He never retired, so there was no reason to have this loophole. I mean, I think he just wanted to have a match just, at a U.S. base because, hey, he had that show at the Air Force Base in 1992, and that was really cool for him. And, he got a photo op and stuff like that. So there's probably talk like that just never ended up happening.
The October tour, Homeless Jimmy and Supreme, 2 guys who were from XPW, they began touring with FMW, and they were put over kind of strong for like a foreign team that came out of nowhere. How did this relationship come about, and how did these 2 guys do during the tour?
Well, FMW was done with ECW at this point, and they weren't going to work with ECW, but they wanted like these hardcore foreign wrestlers that are willing to kill each other and everything. And so Big Japan at this point, they're forming a relationship with CZW, and so XPW is the next logical thing. And XPW, I think at this point, is actually bigger than CZW. You can't do it. You're not going to work with ECW because of the past relationship being strained. So let's contact XPW, which, like I said, this is probably XPW's prime right here, late 2000 or so. And let's bring in these hardcore wrestlers that are willing to have their bodies destroyed against Hideki Osaka and Mama Sasaki in hardcore tag matches and everything. And so they bring in Homeless Jimmy and they bring in Supreme to win the WW hardcore tag titles from Jado and Ghetto. They had won them previous month against in that 3-way tag match in Sapporo. And Jado and Ghetto aren't hardcore wrestlers by any means, so let's get those titles off them so that Sasaki and Hosaka can feud with Homeless Jimmy and Supreme in a hardcore match on a big show.
All right, and this will come, so this will go to the October 10th show, which FMW had in Fukuoka. I'll let you go over that.
So it was pretty much a 2-match show. Like I said, Homeless Jimmy and Supreme, they defeated Jado and Ghetto when Supreme pinned Ghetto to win the WEW Hardcore Tag title. So again, this is just to set up XPW against Sasaki and Hosaka. And then the feud of Goemon and Onryo began here, with Goemon getting the win over Onryo. And like I said, Onryo is just kind of trying to prove himself to the locker room and to the fans and everything, and get over. He's slowly getting over here, and FMW is about to push him pretty decent here. And then the main event is Hayabusa and Masato Tanaka against Kodo Fuyuki and Kentaro Kanemaru. This was set up again. They're gonna have a big show in November in Yokohama. So Hayabusa is gonna take on Fuyuki, and Tanaka is gonna take on Kanemaru. So let's have a tag match between the two. And this match, Hayabusa ends up getting unmasked, and they end up doing the spot where Hayabusa's trying to pick up, Kanemaru's trying to do a backslide on Hayabusa, but then Tanaka hits a rolling elbow on Kanemaru, and eventually Tanaka ends up hitting a diamond dust on Kanemaru, and then Hayabusa would end up pinning Kanemaru with a Firebird splash and everything. And then so afterwards, Hayabusa gets on the mic and he announces, his both his elbows are in such bad shape that he needs time off. And so after the November show, he's going to take 6 months off to get surgery on both his elbows, and he's going to return back on May 5th. And so Hayabusa just couldn't handle it anymore. The pain was just too much. He needed surgery done on both his elbows. And so, the match against Fuyuki is now going to be Hayabusa's last match for 6 months.
Now, does the FMW office, do they support Hayabusa taking the time off, or is there any push of like, you're needed now, can you wait another couple months?
No, because Arai understands. Like, he knows it must be really bad. It must be really bad for Hayabusa to be for doing this, because Hayabusa knows, how important he is to the show and everything. But it was just so bad. And like I said, I mean, he's been, his knee has been bad, his elbow. I mean, we've talked about it, way long ago. Hayabusa was banged up really bad there at the beginning and everything, back in 95, 96 and everything. Well, now he's gone, 97, 98, 99, 2000, 4 years right there of pretty much missing no shows or no tours or anything like that. And so he's just really banged up at this point. And he, like I said, just those flying birds, the Firebird splashes and everything, and Phoenix Splash, all these moves are just taking a toll on him, and it's just becoming so unbearable. And the way at least they acted out on the show and everything, like, because he didn't act like he was in pain during the September 26th Iron Man match. But then you fast forward, the next couple shows, and all they're doing is focusing on his elbows, because Hayabusa's in so much pain and everything due to his elbows. And so anyway, so they knew, this is something that has to be done. It's going to suck. This is going to hurt us bad. But, Hayabusa wouldn't do this unless it was needed.
So on October 18th in LA, XPW, they ran a press conference that is awesome, where they are promoting an Onita versus Sabu exploding ring match. Now, I was actually watching XPW on America 1. It came on after ECW at 3 a.m. or something, and I saw this, and I thought it was just amazing. I'll let you go over it. What happened here, and what became of this attempted match?
Well, yeah, so Rob Black, comes to the podium, and it's at this hotel, and they're going to have a conference to announce Onita versus Sabu in an exploding match in XPW. Well, like I said, Rob Black comes out, he announces, this is where the original hardcore came from. We're going hardcore, real legitimate hardcore wrestling is from Japan, and we brought in the originator. And Atsushi Onita comes out, and he introduces himself, telling the crowd that, he has 1,272 stitches from these explosion matches, and the explosion matches were his idea, and his dream has always been to have an explosion match in America. And so he's trying to think. He goes, I talked to, what's his name? 6 years ago, I talked to Vince McMahon. Yes, WWF owner. Yeah, I talked to him 6 years ago. He agreed for me to have an explosion match in WWF. Never heard back from him. Now, I'm thinking he's confusing his 1997 visit, which would have been 3 years ago at that point. So he goes, Vince McMahon lied to me. Then Paul Heyman, he says we're going to have exploding match in ECW. Never happened. He lied to me. Americans are liars. Why? They think I'm just this Japanese guy, and I'm just going to be like, oh, okay, be polite and be nice and everything. Well, I'm sick of this from Americans, these Americans lying to me. And, like I said, Rob Black and he is with him and everything. They're shaking hands, and Sabu ends up coming to the conference late. And, Onita is saying Americans are cheeky, and just he's going to show them what Japan is all about and everything. And they end up signing the paper for the contract for the match to have an explosion match, and then they end up brawling in the in like the hotel suite, or well, like, you know, one of the conference rooms of the hotel, and they're brawling and everything, and Onita ends up pile driving Sabu through the table. And I mean, the reporters and everything that are actually there, they're laughing and everything, and all this is going on as Onita's just beating the crap out of Sabu. Onita ends up burning the American flag on one of the tables, puts the Japanese flag over Sabu's head and like bangs his head up against the wall, and he ends up leaving Sabu laying on the floor as the American flag is burning on the table, and ends up walking out, and they end up telling him to leave the room right away. So this was to set up, you know, we talked about it last episode, CZW wanted to have an Onita explosion match. They couldn't do it. Well, now XPW, this is Onita's, you know, next shot at his dream of having an explosion match. Rod Black is saying he can get it done, so Onita's going to go with it, but it ends up never happening as well.
Yeah, like I said, I was watching this, and they actually, I don't know if you ever saw this, but they actually aired the entire Hayabusa versus Onita match. Like, they aired it as like a 25-minute match. I remember my aunt, it was the first time that she had seen it, and I really thought it was going to happen, but oh well. So, okay, going on, the next...
it was never...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it was never real. I mean, it never had the capabilities of happening because nobody has that money, and just to be able to put that on here because of all the restrictions and everything in America. So all these dreams of, you know, Paul Heyman really wanted to get it done. And, you know, all these promoters, Rob Black, John Zandig, you know, there's a reason why none of them could, even, you know, the Onita thing last year and everything. It couldn't get done. And so all these people promising Onita, I'm going to get it done. I'm going to get it done. I want it to happen. Yeah, they want it to happen, but it just can't happen.
On October 29th, FMW, they ran Kuroken Hall. If you want to just go over this show.
Yeah, so like I said, so Mr. Ganosuke has been fired from FMW, and so he's going to just create havoc and everything. So on a house show, he actually attacked Tetsuhiro Kuroda, and Shako Bamukai was able to get the win over Kuroda because Ganosuke had been interfering. Well, on this show, Ganosuke, like I said, he's pissed off at everybody. He enters the parking lot, and he sees Sugigaru J. Taro, the FMW announcer, his car. And so he starts breaking the windshield wipers and everything, just destroying the announcer's car because he's so upset over everything that's happened. And then Geto ends up Geto faces Tetsuhiro Kuroda, and Ganosuke ends up interfering in the match, and Geto ends up getting the win over Kuroda because of the Ganosuke interference. And again, you know, Shoshi Arai comes out, and Ganosuke is like, I'm not going to quit doing this until you hire me back. And so Arai goes, okay, this is what I'm going to do. You're going to face Kuroda at the Yokohama show next month. But if you lose, you have to retire. And so Ganosuke goes, okay. So he accepts that, you know, that the stipulation. So Kuroda's going to take on Ganosuke, and if Ganosuke, you know, he's going to now quit causing all this havoc and everything. But if he loses against Kuroda, he has to retire. And then the WEW tag team titles are put on the line again. Tamon Honda and Yoshinobu Kanemaru, they end up defending the WEW tag team titles. Actually, I'm sorry, Tamon Honda and Naomichi Marufuji. They had won the belts at this point, and they end up defending against Hizugatsu Oya and Riki Fuji. Marufuji ends up getting the win over Riki Fuji with a Shironai. This is just Noah wants so many wins before they're agreeing to let the FMW team lose to a Noah wrestler. And then let's see, Masato Tanaka, Hideki Osaka, and Mama Sasaki, they defeat Kentaro Kanemaru, Supreme, and Homeless Jimmy. Tanaka gets the win over Kanemaru to set up the singles match between the two at the Yokohama show. Next event is Hayabusa and Onryo against Kodo Fuyuki and Go on. Just stab at Hayabusa's arms to show why Hayabusa, you know, isn't going to be able to do any high flying moves or anything like that. And Hayabusa's arm, it's really cut up really bad here. But yeah, so they eventually Hayabusa is able to get the win over Fuyuki with a Firebird splash, but his arms are, he's definitely selling his arms as just killing him at this point. And so, again, this is just pretty much just a basic show to set up the November show.
All right. Also on October 29th, Onita went to the Pride office, and he began shooting this angle, trying to challenge Inoki to a match in Pride. It obviously never happened. What is this thing where Onita was always trying to get a match against Inoki, and like, did they ever come close to ever having an actual match?
It was never close to happening. 5 years earlier, Onita had talked to Inoki about having 2 matches. Onita get a win, Inoki get a win, and Inoki was like, I'm not going to lose to you. Why would I'm not even going to waste my time with that. Because here's the thing, Onita always wanted to be that upper echelon of top wrestlers with the Muta, Muta, Inoki, Choshu, Fujinami, those top guys he came up with. He was even there before. But the thing was, is they didn't respect Onita to be in that upper echelon. You didn't, when Onita came to New Japan, Kinsuke Sasaki, a guy that had, started up, 12 years after Onita, wasn't, because of how Onita became famous, he wasn't willing to job. You had Chono that wasn't going to lose to Onita. You had Muta, who had, won against Onita. Then you have Choshu, who, okay, Onita's making a lot of money, but out of the agreement, but Choshu's going to destroy you. Because, again, they don't respect Onita in that way of, okay, you didn't become this big-time named wrestler because of how great of a wrestler you are. You became because of the death matches and that style. But Onita's seeing it as, I took, myself and made myself as popular as you guys. I sell out 50,000 seat stadiums, and I deserve to be at that upper echelon. And so it's just Onita always wanting to be at that level, and he was able to get a mag match win for Tenryu. It was the singles match 2 months later in 1994, which was the Onita peak of popularity. And so for him to have a match with Inoki just, why am I going to have the match with him? There was no point. And so now at this point, Inoki is retired, 2 years retired. Inoki's old. Onita's trying to have this match in a shoot fight, like a Pride, the Pride promotion. So it's not a legitimate, like a wrestling promotion. So that's Onita going, look, let's have this match. You're not even going to come out of retirement because this isn't wrestling. This is a shoot fight promotion. So it's, if you face me, it won't go up against you. You're not lying to anybody. And so, but Inoki is like, I'm not going to waste my time with you, Onita. You're not at my level. And the thing is Onita always still to this day, he, a year ago, his retirement choice, who is it going to be? It's going to be Kazuyuki Fujita in a 6-man, because Fujita is the closest link to Inoki because of that style and because of, IGF and Inoki's type of promotion. And just, so that was, his closest way of getting a match with Inoki was to have a 6-man match with Fujita and everything, because he just never was going to get Inoki, which is what, he always wanted to be like Inoki, follow Inoki footsteps. That's why he wanted to be senator, because Inoki was in politics and everything. So it's just kind of this clash of just Onita just wanting to, be accepted like Inoki is, how well respected and everything Antonio Inoki is in Japan. Onita wanted that, and because of how he got there, he never was going to get that from Inoki, from Choshu, all those type of New Japan strong style wrestlers that were really big popular wrestlers in the 70s and 80s.
All right. Okay, so going on to November, we have a few shows coming up. The first is going to be November 3rd at Kuroken Hall. If you want to go over that for us.
But so I just want to mention also, so Sky Perfect TV, FMW started working with them and everything. They are, the Sky company works with Samurai TV. So Sky Perfect TV and Samurai TV are under the same, corporate umbrella and everything. They're obviously different channels. Sky Perfect's a pay-per-view channel. Samurai TV is just a cable channel. Well, because FMW is now working with Sky, under Sky Perfect TV and everything, that allows them to work to have Samurai TV shows. And so FMW has this show on another big show, at Yokohama on November 12th. Well, they don't want to use up their pay-per-view show on this Corrigan Hall show. So they have this show is aired on Samurai TV, and like I said, so FMW now is going to air once a month. Have a Samurai TV show itself. The Sapporo show aired back in September. That aired on Samurai TV. So this actually allows FMW to air more frequently than just that time a month on DirecTV, the pay-per-view show. That's it. But this show was a 2-match show. Also, again, they're pushing Mama Sasaki. He has a match against Tetsuhiro Kuroda, where he ends up taking the loss to Kuroda. He ends up using a choke slam on Kuroda off the stage through a table, and so he's getting some high power offense in and showing his moves and everything. But Kuroda would end up getting the win to set up his match against Ganosuke. And then Hayabusa, the main event's Hayabusa, Masato Tanaka, and Anryo against Kodo Fuyuki, Kentaro Kanemaru, and Goemon. This is a 2 out of 3 falls match, and the very first fall, though, it's Hayabusa using a cradle to pin Fuyuki in just a minute. So the Hayabusa team gets a win, one fall in the first minute, and then they have just a normal match. Again, Hayabusa's elbows are killing them during this match. And Hayabusa would end up getting the second fall over Fuyuki with a Firebird Splash in 18 minutes. So Hayabusa gets it's a 2 out of 3 falls. Well, the Hayabusa team gets 2 falls out of nothing. They win the match. Hayabusa has now pinned Kodo Fuyuki pretty much 3 straight. Well, technically 4 straight times, going back to that explosion match or the exploding cage match in September in Sapporo. And then he got the win in October, and now he's got the 2 wins over Fuyuki in November. So Fuyuki is losing a lot to Hayabusa here to set up the Hayabusa Fuyuki match in November at the Yokohama Bunka Gym.
Which is going to take us to that show. So if you want to go over that show for us.
Yes. So this show announced at 5,200 fans. There's not even 5,200 fans at the Yokohama Bunka Gym building usually. It was legitimate about 2,500, so it was about a half full house. The issue with this show really was the main selling point is Hayabusa versus Fuyuki, and it's just been done to death at this point. Not only has it been done to death, they did this show 2 years ago with the 2 of the top 3 matches were Hayabusa versus Fuyuki and Tetsuhiro Kuroda versus Mr. Ganosuke. Those are the same matches now, just 2 years later, and they're doing it again. But on top of that, they've used Hayabusa Fuyuki. Wrestled each other at Sapporo in a cage match, the Thunderbolt cage match. Then they had an Iron Man match, so you do the 2 stipulation matches, and then this match is just a normal regular match, just there must be a winner and everything. And so that really hurt the show. And then, just FMW, just at the decline they're at right now. They're just, taking hit after hit. And so this is their big show. And like I said, it didn't do very well. Today, Big Japan would be ecstatic probably, or, their goal is probably 2,500 at the Yokohama Bunka Gym. But at this point, that is not a good number for FMW. Some of the matches are Flying Kid Ichihara. He had a match against Shinjuku Shark, and the winner got Kaoruko Arai because the Arai Ichihara relationship is falling apart at this point, and Shinjuku Shark has shown interest in her. But Ichihara ends up getting the win over Shinjuku Shark, but Kaoruko Arai afterwards announces that she's actually in love with Shinjuku Shark, and so she's going to be with him anyway. And so Shinjuku Shark is now going to be with Arai. Jado, Geto, and Kaori Nakayama, they defeat Brad Elliott, Damian Blade, and Pat Tanaka for the WEW 6-man titles. Most people, know Pat Tanaka through the Orient Express and WWF and AWA with Paul Diamond and everything. He was he was working in Kansas City right around this time period. And so he brought 2 of his students, Damian Blade and Brad Elliott, 2 big guys, for this match. Kodo Fuyuki actually hated Pat Tanaka, but this was as a favor to Geto, who idolized Pat Tanaka and had worked with Pat Tanaka in Universal in 1990. And it's actually a sad story. In 2002, Geto, when he was working for New Japan, got Pat Tanaka booked in New Japan, And Pat Tanaka told everyone, "Hey, I have an illness, a terminal illness, and I'm about to die." And so Gedo had all the New Japan wrestlers, give Pat Tanaka money because of how Tanaka is saying he's in really bad condition and everything. He doesn't have long to live. Well, Tanaka was actually lied to them and ended up taking all the money and just never coming back. And it just broke Geto's heart that someone that he idolized and everything, and known for 10 plus years, just completely screwed over, him and the New Japan wrestlers. Anyway, going back to this match, Jado would end up getting the win over Tanaka to defend the WEW tag team titles. Naohiko Yamazaki would take on Kyoko Inoue. This is just, a comedy match, again, to get over the whole Naohiko Yamazaki UFO gimmick. And Inoue gets the win, and after this, Inoue announces, she's going to just become a women's wrestler. She's just going to work women's matches and everything. She's been working against the men a lot throughout the year, and she's just now going to go to the women's division after this show. Hizugatu Oya defeated Azusa Kudo and Emi Morikawa. This match started based off Oya being upset that Azusa Kudo was going into the women's bathroom also, and Kudo took exception to that. Oya was upset at this, and so they had a handicap match. Oya would end up getting the win, making Kudo submit to an octopus hold. Again, most of these matches are nothing. So the undercard's by no means good. The WW Hardcore Tag Titles, Hideki Osaka and Mama Sasaki, they take on the champions, Supreme and Homeless Jimmy. This match is, again, it's a pretty cool hardcore match for the division and everything. They brawl outside the building, and again, Sugiguru J Toro's car is in the way. Earlier in the show, they showed him arrive and everything, and so they see that his car is parked just kind of right in front of the building. Well, they end up brawling all around outside the building, and Mammoth Sasaki takes like this cinder block and throws it at Homeless Jimmy, and Jimmy moves out of the way and hits the car, and so they end up like using a power bomb on the car. And so again, it's more of just this comedy thing of the announcer's car getting destroyed again. But anyway, it eventually leads to Mammoth using the Mammoth Buster to get the win on Homeless Jimmy, and so now the Mammoth Sasaki Hideki Osaka team are now 3-time WEW Hardcore Tag Team Champions. And then Goemon takes on Onryo, and so the gimmick to this match is that Onryo is the champion. He has the Belt of Curse, which is a belt that kills you, and it's actually what killed him. And so, he's a ghost and everything, and he is going to fight Goemon, and the loser wins this belt. And so they have a match, and Goemon has a cool entrance where he comes out like through a coffin and everything. But it only goes 6 minutes before all of a sudden Onryo ends up rolling up Goemon with an Onryo clutch. And so Goemon starts trying to run away and everything, and they have to hold him down and handcuff him to this title belt. And already he's starting to like vomit blood and everything, and so this belt is slowly going to kill Goemon. Mr. Ganosuke versus Tetsuhiro Kuroda. This is the match that has Mr. Ganosuke's career on the line, and they have a match. Again, the problem with a lot of this is, some of these aren't. The undercard is bad, and then we get the upper card match, and they're okay, and like FMW for a couple of years there was like they're gonna have these awesome, couple like the 3 top matches are gonna be awesome, but anyway, this match, Ganosuke ends up getting busted open earlier. He gets his head banged into the ring post, and so he bleeds all over. And eventually, Tetsuhiro Kuroda would end up debuting his, and Ganosuke, by the way, before I say that, Ganosuke ends up, getting cheered a lot. A lot of people don't want Ganosuke to retire and everything, and so he does this Ganosuke clutch, and the crowd is cheering him on and everything, even though he's the heel. But eventually, Kuroda would debut his new finishing move, the Tekken Buster DDT, which is like an implanter DDT where he lifts you up and then drops you. He gets the win over Ganosuke. And Ganosuke does an amazing job acting here, where he starts bawling. I mean, his eyes are he is just crying. He's doing an amazing job of crying here, and the blood is all over his face, and he's really teary eyed. And Kuroda starts mocking him and let me show the respect to Mr. Ganosuke's career, and just starts ringing the bell 10 times really fast, and just starts going, celebrating and everything. As Mr. Ganosuke is, like I said, crying, gets on the mic and just says goodbye and walks away. So Ganosuke is now retired for the time being. Kentaro Kanemaru defends the WEW hardcore title against Masato Tanaka. I made mention, ever since Masato Tanaka came back, he hasn't been pushed the way that he usually had been. He hadn't been protected. And he also took a really nasty cut on a bump on his head, and cut his head really bad. And so he actually had to shave his head around this time period, and had because of the slice on his head. And they have a match where, again, another brawl all around the building and everything. Tanaka takes a fluorescent light tube shot to the head. Kanemaru does a dive off the balcony at Yokohama Bunka Gym, sending Tanaka through a table. And then the ending spot is Kanemaru setting the barbed wire bat on fire. And he ends up hitting Tanaka with the bat, and then finishing Tanaka off with a Thunderfire powerbomb. So this is Kanemaru's first win over Tanaka in over 3 years, and in that time they'd wrestled a bunch, and Tanaka always won. So this is Kanemaru's big win over Masato Tanaka finally. Again, they just weren't as high on Masato Tanaka after he came back. And then the main event is Kodo Fuyuki versus Hayabusa. Hayabusa, and also, by the way, before I forget, so this is because of the whole Superstar H gimmick that Hayabusa, the H had. When he became Hayabusa full time after, back in July, he was still introduced as Superstar Hayabusa. So he had a different design and everything that he didn't, that he only wore around in 2000 or so. It was a completely different design. And he went by Superstar H, but once he came back in 2001, he dropped the Superstar name altogether. This match, it's okay. It's not anywhere near where it should have been. I mean, the match in September at Corrigan Hall, a smaller building, was a lot better. The Thunderbolt cage exploding match was a lot better. Hayabusa's elbows are just shot at this point. He can barely lift them up. So it's killing him to do a Firebird Splash, and it's killing him to do all, the Acai Moonsault and everything. And he's holding him the whole time. And then, eventually Fuyuki would get the win with the charging lariat and put away Hayabusa. And so Kodo Fuyuki has defended the WEW title against Hayabusa. Hayabusa's going to take some time off. Fuyuki and Hayabusa shake hands afterwards, and Hayabusa, cuts a promo saying he's going to come back in May at the Kawasaki Stadium show on May 5th. He'll be back. He's going to need surgery and everything, and to keep FMW strong while he's gone and everything. And he's shaking hands. Kuroda's in the ring and everything, watching Hayabusa, and he, like I said, so Hayabusa's, the show's over and he's shaking, and all of a sudden Kuroda attacks Hayabusa and hits the Tekken Buster and lays Hayabusa out in the middle of the ring. Kuroda gets on the mic and announces that with Hayabusa out, he's the new ace of FMW. He will be the new one to lead FMW going forward with Hayabusa out. And it's out with the old, in with the new. Kuroda is the new, and so Kuroda now has turned heel. And Hayabusa is laid out and just lays in the ring. Even Kuroda's gone, and Hayabusa is just this sign of exhaustion. Just all he's done for, and he's just knocked out completely, selling the Tekken Buster and just what he went through. Some of the rookies and everything come in and carry Hayabusa off to end the show. But so going forward now, with Hayabusa out, they are going to really put a big push for Kuroda, and he is going to be the face of the promotion with Hayabusa out.
Okay, so Ganosuke, he was being written out because of injuries, right?
Well, what happened was actually, so that liver, because of his liver, we talked about back in April, March, he missed the Corrigan Hall show because he had gone to the doctor and they had told him, your liver's really bad and everything. You're going to need to take some time off. Well, and we're going to need to get you retested and everything. And so he gets retested, and it comes back, and they go, no, this is really bad. These are bad, really negative results. You're going to need to retire. so Ganosuke actually does. I mean, and no one believes it, and Fuyuki and everything with the retirements and everything, and obviously Ganosuke came back. But at this time, Ganosuke actually told Shirai, "I have to retire for a time being. Like, I really can't wrestle and everything." And so, he really. Going back to September or so, I mean, even August, like, he's had a light schedule. The Hayabusa match that he main evented, and like I said, that was an entertaining match. It wasn't by any means a good match because of his liver and everything, and so. He just kind of just marched on through until he couldn't even wrestle anymore. And then, he had to take time off and get retested and everything. And eventually, he saw his doctor the following year. And so, they told him, okay, your liver's good now. You can go back. But, I mean, for the time being, it really was like Ganosuke might never wrestle again and everything. Now, because of his health situation. But again, it came back about 6 months later that he did need to, that he could come back. But, FMW really couldn't afford to lose Ganosuke on top of Hayabusa. That's two top stars that's going to be out for the next 2 months that they just lost. And, I mean, that it's going to cost them, a big fan base. And, but like I said, yeah, so it was a legitimate concern. Ganosuke really didn't know if he was going to be able to come back because his liver was so bad off.
And was that from an illness, or like what was it from?
I mean, I've talked to him about it. He didn't specifically tell me. I would imagine that it's just drinking too much, if I had to guess, with how much Japanese wrestlers drink. And I know Hito has a really bad liver illness as well. And I mean, I know he's a big time drinker. It's just all, drinking since college and just drinking after every show. And, sometimes it can really screw you up even at an early age. And that was just something that probably just messed up Ganosuke. I mean, thankfully for just the time being. But like I said, Hito, suffers from liver disease because of how much he drank, and he can no longer wrestle as a result.
My few nights drinking with the guys, I'm like just blacked out. It's wild.
Yeah, so imagine years of that, and then having that pressure of you're a wrestler, you got to keep up.
Yeah.
So, and we're all going to the bars afterwards.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead to the November 28th show. So Hayabusa is so their two top aces basically are now gone, and they're not going to be around for a while. So if you want to go through the November 28th show for us.
Yeah. So this show, I know Dave reported it as only 500 fans for the show at Corrigan Hall because of Hayabusa being out. I just looking at that crowd, there's just no way there's only 500 people. Now, it might have eventually got to that point because of, I mean, Corrigan Hall definitely took a big time hit and everything with Hayabusa out. And this by, I mean, now they're announcing like 1900 and everything. But again, which are probably a really legitimate, 1200, 1000, something like that. And like I said, they might have gotten to 500 eventually, but this show, I could see more than 500 fans at the show. But they, so this is more, now it's just with Hayabusa out, they're going to even like kind of put a more emphasis on Kuroda as being the top star, but the problem is Kuroda just didn't really have it to be the top star. And the Corrigan Hall shows and just the overall shows are going to take a big time hit as a result. But so this show, Goemon challenges Onryo. The winner, again, Goemon wants to get rid of the title, the belt of curse that is, chained to him and everything that is slowly killing him. And Goemon wears his Goemon mask, which covers half his face for this match. And like I said, this is a Fuyuki storyline and everything. I don't mind it. A lot of people hate this storyline. I don't actually mind it. I think it's a creative mid-card storyline. But Onryo ends up getting the win over Goemon again. He ends up wrapping him up with the Onryo clutch. And so Goemon at this point is just he accepts it now. He even just allows them to handcuff the title back to him on him, and then Onryo takes the Goemon takes the mask off, and it reveals that half his face is now like Onryo, which is like a ghost, the sign of that he's dying. He's becoming a ghost. This belt is killing him. And then Mama Sasaki and Hideki Osaka take on the XPW team of Supreme is returning, but now they're bringing in Pogo the Clown, who is this big, giant, fat guy. And this is a horrible match. It's really bad. A lot of the Osaka Mammoth hardcore matches are good. This match by no means is good. They try and do a power bomb. I think it was on Supreme. Yeah, and through a table, and Supreme doesn't clear it, and so he bangs his head up against the table, and you could just tell he has like this concussion. Pogo the Clown's horrible. I mean, I don't know. Homeless Jimmy at least had something there. Pogo the Clown's just a big fat guy, and like I said, this was just not a good match. Hosaka delivers a choke slam. I think Supreme got a concussion from this match. He was just so wobbly afterwards and just seemed out of it. But anyway, Hosaka and Mammoth retain the WEW Hardcore Tag titles. And then the main event is scheduled to be a three-way tag match between Kodo Fuyuki and Kentaro Kanemura against Masato Tanaka and Tetsuhiro Kuroda, as well as against Jado and Geto. Well, Jado and Geto, they shake Tanaka's hand and everything, and they go, hey, shake, your face, we're faces, let's shake hands, Kuroda. Well, Kuroda attacks Jado and Geto, and then he attacks the referee, and then he attacks Kaori Nakayama, the female, the manager for Jado and Geto. Then he attacks Masato Tanaka and turns on Masato Tanaka, and Kuroda has now joined up with Kodo Fuyuki and Kentaro Kanemura. And so then they changed this to a six-man match with Kodo Fuyuki, Kentaro Kanemura, and Tetsuhiro Kuroda going up against Masato Tanaka, Jado, and Geto. And again, they're going to push Kuroda. He's going to be the top focus now to push him up high on the card and everything to get him established wins. And he's playing this like cocky, like even delusional, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, no one can stop me, I'm just huge ego and everything. And but eventually Kuroda would end up actually getting the win over Masato Tanaka with a lariat, and Kuroda, like I said, so now Kuroda has joined the heel side of Fuyuki and Kanemura, while Masato Tanaka, Jado, and Geto, they now are going to, along with Kaori Nakayama, they're going to form their own group and form an alliance against the Kuroda Fuyuki team, and the Tanaka team is now going to be called, they're going to be called the Complete Players, and they would actually be an alliance for years and years through several different promotions.
All right, so you mentioned that the attendance is down. Now, like, what other facets of FMW's business is going to be hurt by losing the 2 stars, like, T-shirt sales, video sales, and stuff?
Yeah, no, house shows. That's the big thing. House shows are now just death. And I made mention last episode about, you asked, how's FMW doing and everything, and I said right now, if nothing negative happens, they could survive this. So because of, they are in the negative and everything, but Shoshi Arai, with how much he focused on wanting to keep this company and what he was willing to do, he, FMW, if they would have just stayed packed or something like that, they probably could have survived, or maybe even had Shoshi Arai sell it or something like that. It was salvageable. At this point, around this time period, FMW needed to close down if Shoshi Arai was to stay alive. Shoshi Arai now is putting his life in danger and it's becoming an addiction at this point to keep this company alive. I love FMW. I love it. Obviously, he should have shut this promotion down at this point for his own sake. But because they are about to take hit after hit, every house show. They're now, at this point, they're canceling house shows. I mentioned this Corrigan Hall show. It didn't do good. I think it did more than 500, but it didn't do good. And Corrigan's supposed to be where they're making the money. Corrigan's about to take even a bigger hit. This is where Hayabusa is shown. Everybody realized, wow, Hayabusa was a huge draw, because that company was, the company was down, was losing money, but now they're losing money and fast. And now we're at a point where Shoshi Arai is reaching out to, he says, loan sharks. He's calling them loan sharks. Most people, and he says that it was not the Yakuza. Most people say it's the Yakuza. Maybe he just didn't want to get it out that he was working with the Yakuza. I don't know. But he is borrowing money like crazy from the Yakuza. Or, what he's saying is loan sharks and everything. And like I said, so they're losing money. By the end of the year, they're not able to even pay the wrestlers, which is something that he had always been able to pride himself on, that he would always be able to pay the wrestlers. He's about $1 million in debt by the end of the year. FMW is at. Just such a struggle at this point. And, now he's focusing on, well, one, he, borrowing all the money from the loan sharks or whatever, that comes with an interest. So he's able to pay the loan sharks back, but now the interest rate is so high that he can't pay the interest rate. So then he's having to borrow more money from different loan sharks to pay the interest of the previous loan shark. And so now it's just, we're getting into this cycle of just, he's owing money and the money is piling up, and now he can't even focus on like his own job. Now he's at a point where he's just trying to get sponsors. He gets in touch with Chocobo Mukai and everything, and he ends up using his friend has a healthy food brand, and with Chocobo Mukai having been a former at the time still a porn star, but also a former bodybuilder, he has a really good body and everything. He's able to get a sponsorship deal, which is $20,000 a month, with using Chocobo Mukai as the image for this healthy food brand. Well, $20,000 is nothing. It just goes away so fast. Going back to the Sky Perfect thing, they offered pretty much. They were willing, pay. So FMW is getting about $480,000 or so, something like that, from Sky Perfect for the year. Well, Arai demanded that they pay $120,000 up front of that. He wanted 5 months up front for the money. So pretty much all the 2000 Sky Perfect TV money they got right away. They got $120,000 right away from Sky Perfect out of the negotiations. So Arai gets $120,000. It's gone instantly. He's trying to cover everything up. So now they're not even making money off the Sky Perfect TV because it just was paid to fill in all the holes that were already in debt from previous things. Now you add in all the money that's owed from the loan sharks. Now he's putting up his house up for sale. He's putting up his car up for sale. Not up for sale, but he's putting it as like a loan thing. Like if he doesn't pay it back, if he doesn't pay the money back and everything, he's putting up his house as collateral and everything. He's putting up his car as collateral. His wife is so upset over this, going, wait, you're putting your job over your family here. You're putting our house up for collateral for your company. Just quit. Just give the company up. And Arai wouldn't do it. And like I said, at this point, they're $1 million in debt. It's about to get worse. Hayabusa is going to be out for another 5 months, and that's the saving grace. And even with Hayabusa, they were still, losing money, just a lot slower pace. Now they're bleeding money, and like I mentioned, FMW at this point, this is when it needed to end. It either needed to sell it or just shut it down at $1 million in debt. But he kept going, and it's just about to get worse and worse. So things are looking very, very bleak for FMW at this point.
I have a few questions. One thing that we haven't talked about is what is Arai's personal life like? I know, but if you want to tell people, does he have a family? What is his, how? This is a pretty sad story when it ends, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about that aspect. This is the sad story. In 2002 or so, but at this point, so he's married. He has a 4-year-old child. I may mention, I've had many conversations with this daughter in the past and everything, and she even tells me yeah, my mom's crazy. My mom is crazy. She's not a well person and everything. And so Shoshi Arai is dealing with somebody that is probably not at the best mental and emotional level right now. Then you add in the fact that I'm willing to put up my house up for collateral. I'm willing to put up my car for, the family car for collateral. All this stuff. Then you add in that Shoshi Arai went to a hostess bar with sponsors. He says it was for sponsors and everything. Hostess bars where pretty girls and everything flirt with you, touch you, and tell you how great you are while you buy expensive alcohol and everything. Well, he went to that with one of the sponsors, and one of the girls left a card, gave him one of his card, or gave him a card or everything of her name, and he puts it in his jacket pocket, and then his wife's going through his jacket pocket and sees this card. Who's this? You're dirty. You're going to these, strip clubs and all this for all with all these dirty girls and everything when you're supposed to be married to me, when you're saying you're going for a job, and he's going, Arai's going, no, I'm going for business, and she doesn't believe him, and so their marriage is falling apart. And yeah, they would actually end up, because of all the financial issues, they would Shoshi Arai's wife would actually leave him in 2001. And that's going to create a whole thing, because here we had FMW bleeding money. Well, now Shoshi Arai, he has to pay child support, and his wife is expecting a high amount of child support payments and everything. And he, and that was actually what really destroyed him, was losing his daughter. That's, at this point, when your wife is just at a mental level and he just can't handle it anymore, like, okay, she's gone, whatever. But his daughter was someone that he really loved, and it just killed him that he couldn't see her anymore. And so, yeah, it's a really sad story. And it just, the whole story of FMW here at the end just gets sadder and sadder. But at this point, right now they're still, him and his wife are still together, but she's really upset, and their marriage is about to end.
All right. Okay. So we're gonna keep on going. So for the rest of the year, you made a note that one of their big plans is they're gonna start running more shows at Kuroken Hall. Why?
Because of the house shows were so horrible that Korean was known as the show, at least the show that the building that could have a financial success possibly. That's where that's how FMW always was you run the house shows, okay, you lose money, but you get notoriety across the country. You're a legitimate promotion and everything. Everyone across the country knows who you are. You're the third ranked promotion. That's just what FMW was in 1995, 1996. Well, now we're in 2000, and the house show business isn't just losing money, it's killing you. So let's go to Corrigan, because Corrigan would always bring the money in. When you would go to Corrigan in 95, 96, you'd make money. That's where you made your money. Sapporo and Corrigan. And so that was just the mindset of, let's run Corrigan more. Well, we can't run it like 12 times a month, so let's move it up to 2 times a month, because Sky Perfect TV allows us to run it 2 times a month. So they got permission from Sky Perfect TV to have 2 different shows every month instead of 1. And so now going forward, they're going to have 2 shows most months, and starting in November, the November 28th show was a Corrigan Hall net show, and then in December they run 2 Corrigan Hall shows. That was to hope to possibly bring in more money. But again, we talk about it. Corrigan now is dropping the show. The number is dropping each time, so they're making less and less money. So Corrigan was always known as the Band-Aid to cover the cut. Well, now this Band-Aid is ripped up, and it's not covering this deep cut anymore. And so, Corrigan is not helping them. If it's helping them at all, it's helping them very, very little. And and now, like I said, the house shows are getting worse and worse, and we're getting at a point where now Rai can't even pay the wrestlers.
Okay. So if we go on, so they ran the 2 final shows that we're going to talk about for FMW. They ran on December 10th and December 20th. So if you want to go ahead and you want to go over those shows.
So FMW ran on December 10th, and then they're now focusing on pushing up Mammoth Sasaki up the card and everything. So they have a handicap match: Mammoth Sasaki against Hideki Osaka against the 3 rookies: Tamakazu Morita, Yoshihito Sasaki, and Satoru Makita. And Mammoth Sasaki actually was the live-in dojo worker. So Koji Nakagawa Goemon was the FMW trainer at this point, and so he's the one that trained all the wrestlers. But Mammoth Sasaki, having just graduated from the FMW dojo a little over 2 years later, he lived at the dojo. That's where he stayed, and he lived it. He was like, the room mom or whatever. And he would beat the crap out of the wrestlers. Nakagawa was just very quiet. Okay, do this, do that, good job. Very anti what Tarzan Goto was in the early 90s as far as an FMW trainer. Mammoth Sasaki was kind of like Tarzan Goto. He would beat the crap out of them when he was upset at them. One time the dojo wrestlers overslept after 6 a.m. He comes in, sees them all asleep. He kicked Yoshihito Sasaki so hard that he came up off the ground because he was kicked so hard by Mammoth Sasaki. So Mammoth Sasaki is someone that shows them tough love. And so for this match, Mammoth Sasaki is showing them tough love by beating the crap out of them with chairs throughout the match, to where Hideki Osaka is going, hey, stop it. You don't need to use the chair. You don't need to do this. And Mammoth Sasaki gets annoyed with Osaka, trying to calm him down, trying to get him to go easy on the kids, and Mama Sasaki wants nothing to do with it. And so Mama Sasaki ends up putting like a chair over, hitting Yoshihiro Sasaki with a chair shot to the head and everything, and then that gets the win. And Hideki Osaka is upset that Mama Sasaki was so rough with these kids and everything, and just walks out. And then you had the Belt of Curse match again, another Onryo versus Goemon match. And in this match, Goemon comes to the ring. Instead of his black attire, he comes to the ring with a white attire, a white wrestling jumpsuit pretty much and everything. And then this is to show that he's internally bleeding. So during this match, you see just blood start just coming in through the cloth that he's wearing and everything, and through his back and through his stomach and everything. And this is his last shot to try and win, because he's dying. If he doesn't beat Onryo here, he's going to die. Well, as he's about to hit a tire driver on Onryo, Goemon ends up spitting blood out of his mouth and ends up passing out. The doctor comes to the ring, calls for the match to end, and Onryo's awarded the win, and Goemon is stretchered off as a sign that he has died from holding this Belt of Curse for the last month. And then the main event is Kodo Fuyuki, Tetsuhiro Kuroda, Kentaro Kanemaru, and Azusa Kudo, the transvestite Gasaku Gashugaware we talked about last episode. They've teamed up against Masato Tanaka, Jado Geto, and Kaori Nakayama. So it's kind of one of these like 3 men and a woman against each other match. And this match, none of these matches are by any means you need to watch for, really stand out, and none of them are great, pretty much is what I'm trying to say. None of them are something that you need to go out of your way to see. FMW, besides just kind of the crowds dying, a lot of the shows weren't really that good. This is not my favorite FMW time period. Let's just put it that way. But anyway, so Kaori Nakayama ends up getting the win over Azusa Kudo. She gets the pin over him with a Diamond Best, and afterwards, Kuroda attacks her. Kuroda ends up taking a fire hydrant and blowing it into the ring, and to clear the ring from all the complete players, Tanaka, Jado, Geto, everyone, smoke everywhere, and so that Kuroda could have the ring to himself, so he can pose and celebrate, because again, he has this egotistical attitude and everything, I'm the best and everything, and he actually accidentally drops the fire extinguisher and blows on Fuyuki, which he apologizes for and everything. So again, this is just to get Kuroda over as the number 1 guy with Hayabusa out, and they're just going a different direction with Kuroda being the heel, but still being the face of the promotion with Hayabusa gone. And then on December 20th, they had a match, they had another Corrigan Hall show and everything, and this was pretty much a 3-match show, I guess. They furthered the Mama Sasaki Hideki Hisaka feud. They had a 3-way match, Sasaki, Hisaka, and Azusa Kudo, and Mammoth is just beating the crap out of Azusa Kudo during the match with chair shots and everything, and but Hideki Osaka ends up escaping with the pinfall over Azusa Kudo, getting the win in the 3-way, which really upsets Mammoth Sasaki, who's throwing chairs. So a feud is building up with Mammoth, and dissension is feuding up with Hosaka and Mammoth. And then Shinjuku Shark and Naohiko Yamazaki, they're going to team up against Onryo and a mystery partner. So Onryo comes to the ring. He has no partner. Well, then Goemon's music starts to play, and you see backstage in a coffin, Goemon rise from the coffin. He's coming back from the dead. He comes to the ring, and he's going to now team up with Onryo, because the whole thing was Goemon had to die to know what Onryo, to kind of experience what, Onryo's life and to be like Onryo. And so now they're going to team up. And so Goemon and Onryo get the win. Goemon hits a swanton splash on Yamazaki. And so now Goemon and Onryo are now a regular tag team with Goemon being the face. And again, it's Fuyuki booking. I liked it as a mid-card storyline for House, even though it's silly and everything, but it established them as a team, and they were a team for several years, and they both kind of had gothic and ghost gimmicks and everything, so I think it worked. This is one of the few Fuyuki angles I feel like that did work. And then the main event, Mr. Ganosuke actually comes to the ring. He announces, as Masashi Honda, his real name, he's no longer Mr. Ganosuke. He's retired, but he's going to watch this match. And Hayabusa also comes to the ring as well. And Ganosuke is going to be on commentary, and Hayabusa is just going to watch the match and everything. But Hayabusa comes to the ring with his sling on and takes the sling off to show, he's healing at the speed that he's expecting. It's been about a month or so, but he's recovering, and they have a match. It's going to be a barbed wire scramble bunkhouse double hell death match. So that means they're going to put the barbed wire over the ropes, and then they're going to have barbed wire boards outside the ring. And this is going to be the last ever. It's promoted as the last ever FMW barbed wire match, and it's going to be Kodo Fuyuki, Tetsuhiro Kuroda, and Kentaro Kanemaru against Masato Tanaka, Jado, and Geto. Kodo Fuyuki comes to the ring with completely clothed. He has this jean jacket on and everything. He's coming prepared for this barbed wire match. Shoshi Arai is actually the announcer, or the ring announcer for this match, since he was the ring announcer during all the Onita barbed wire matches in the early 90s and stuff. But this is, they take a lot of bumps and everything. They really beat the hell out of each other. Tanaka is cut open. Kodo Fuyuki gets slammed into the barbed wire boards and everything. So, they really go all out. All these wrestlers were willing to go and willing to get cut up and everything. But eventually, and it's a good match. It's nothing like the Onita matches, and it doesn't have anywhere near the heat that the Onita matches have. But eventually, Kuroda would end up getting the Tekken Buster DDT on Jado, and Kuroda gets the win, and he starts calling out Hayabusa to the ring. Come out, come on, you chicken, come on, come fight me, and everything. Trying to, and Ganosuke actually has to hold, as Hayabusa back, who Hayabusa, can't come to the because his arms are still shot and everything, and Hayabusa flips Kuroda off and everything. He's pissed off as Ganosuke and Hayabusa leave, and Kuroda is mocking them and everything. I retired Ganosuke, and Hayabusa, you're too chicken to my FNW. I'm the new ace of the promotion and everything. And so they're really going strong with Kuroda being the focus. And at this point it looks like it's going to be Hayabusa versus Tetsuhiro Kuroda at Kawasaki Stadium for Hayabusa this return match, but they would hold that back a little bit, and but that's now the main focus is Hayabusa versus Kuroda, even though Hayabusa's not wrestling right now.
Now, so he only made a few appearances while out. What was he doing during that time?
He was rehabbing. It's just something where you just couldn't wrestle and everything. So he had double reconstructive elbow surgery. So it was something to where he just really couldn't have a legitimate match. He needed 6 months to heal. So he, he just was living on normal. He didn't tour with the guys or anything like that. I think he just lived at home and everything for the 6 months, and he couldn't compete. He ended up appearing a couple times on. He would come back in February. We'll talk about it next episode, I'm sure. But, he'd come back as Hayabusa, and he'd be able to do some moves and everything to get a crowd ovation and set up Hayabusa and Kuroda. But, as far as he couldn't have, a legitimate match where he's taking bumps or getting dropped down on his elbows or anything like that. So he, at this point, he's just having to recover.
All right, and I wanted to ask a few more questions before we go on. Why did they decide to do this final barbed wire match? Was it just a way to try to sell out that one show?
Well, yeah, it was done as a marketing ploy, hey, this is the last ever barbed wire match, but it was because they didn't want to do barbed wire matches anymore. This was the only barbed wire match they ever did on a pay-per-view, because it took, and for this show, it took 25 minutes to set up, and that was without even taking the ropes down. It was just literally putting the barbed wire around the ropes and putting the barbed wire boards, setting that all up. It took 25 minutes. Well, these are live pay-per-views and everything, so they're having to take the break and, taking the intermission and everything everything before the main event instead of like, usually intermission's done like 2 or 3 matches left on the show. This with one match on the show, and then for pay-per-view people that are watching it live, they gotta have all these other things going on. They had like Fuyuki like had a talent agency thing going on, and so he had all these women come out and stuff just to pretty much kill time while they're setting up the ring and everything. And so it was just something they didn't want to do for a live pay-per-view, and because it took 25 minutes of pretty much dead air essentially of them having to filler. And so it was just done, like I said, it was done as a marketing ploy, but again, they wanted to get away from barbed wire. They were okay with explosions and everything, but barbed wire was kind of Onita's thing, and they kind of wanted to get away from that. So let's try and make this show draw a little bit by announcing this is the final barbed wire match, because we don't plan on doing another barbed wire match, and they didn't. This was the final barbed wire match in FMW's history.
Okay, I have one more question about the business before we finish up the year with a few other notes, and it's basically like, do the rest of the wrestlers and the rest of the staff, do they know how bad it really is, or is this being hidden from them?
They have to. Well, they know that it's not doing too well because they're not getting paid. So, but they're saying like, okay, we understand Arai. They were very loyal to Arai and everything, and they still had insurance and everything. So at least if something bad happened, FMW always did cover them as far as their hospital bills and everything like that. So, they're not, and they would eventually get some, paid back and everything, but they just couldn't get their paychecks in December and January or so. But, like I said, they would get paychecks eventually. But, they didn't go a year without getting paid is pretty much what I'm trying to say. But so they would get paid, but they didn't get paid right away or anything. So that's obviously a sign that they didn't think that, they knew FMW was struggling and everything. But, again, we go into every time I ask an FMW wrestler, did you think FMW was going to die? They say, no, I didn't think so. And, it's like one of those, they just are probably believing, like, he's going to get it through. Shoshi Arai is, we go over, Shoshi Arai did too much to keep this company going. She shouldn't have done this much. FMW should have ended at this point because it's so gone at this point. Even with Hayabusa coming back, that's the saving grace, but it's, and it's just getting worse and worse, and it's just too much to overcome at this point. And so like I said, it shocks me that they didn't know, but everyone I've talked to has said, I didn't know FMW was going to close, even though I kind of knew at the end, okay, this isn't going to work. This can't go on much longer. But I imagine it's just the wrestlers just having faith that Shoshi Arai is going to pull it through, and something's going to happen. And Shoshi Arai was trying to sell it at the end. He, the problem was who was going to pay the millions of dollars in debt that it was in at this point, the new owner or Arai. But Shoshi Arai really was trying to sell it because he knew at the end, this isn't, I can't, under this, what I'm doing and all this, I gotta sell it. And so he was trying to sell it, but it would end up going under before he could. But like I said, I'm sure the wrestlers say they were surprised, and they were, but it's just one of those, they're just not seeing it the way that they probably should.
I'll admit this. I'm just waiting for the final episode, because I have a million questions about that, but we're not there yet. So to finish out the year, on December 23rd, Noah ran a show at their new, bigger building. I'll let you kind of go over. But what happened on the show?
Yeah, so Noah ran on December 23rd. They ran their big end of the year show at the Ariake Coliseum. That's right next to the Differ Rocky. Noah has kind of claimed this area, which is in southern Tokyo, as their own. Like I said, Ariake Coliseum and Differ Rocky are like right next to each other. Differ Rocky is the office for Noah, so this is their own area now. They pretty much claim this area, so they're gonna have their big show, and they have matches like Misawa versus Vader, and they have Hashimoto versus Takeo Amore, and Kenta Kobashi versus Jun Akiyama. Well, in the mid card, FMW is going to finally get their win back from the Noah team. They had already defeated Jadon Geto. They defeated Hisagatsu Oi and Riki Fuji. Well, now Taman Honda and Naomichi Morifuji are going to drop the WEW tag team titles to Kodo Fuyuki and Tetsuhiro Kuroda. Fuyuki's going to hit the lariat on Honda. So pretty much, that was the deal where G can get a pin over Riki Fuji and Jado, and Fuyuki's going to get a win on our big show against Taman Honda. So, I mean, it's really just was kind of no one of significance jobbed here, pretty much, as far as like a named guy for either promotions. But so Fuyuki and Tetsuhiro Kuroda are now the WEW Tag Team title champions going into 2001. And, that they're the two top heels, and there's really no babyface that seems like that can stop them.
Okay. The only question I've got left is the FMW the Tokyo Pop videos came out. How did they sell when they came out?
They did decent. They did about like 14th in the top 20 sales. They did better than WCW was doing, but WCW wasn't really releasing too many videos at this point either. I mean, it was a dying company, but FMW stuff was new. And like I said last episode, there was Cactus Jack was on the cover, and Hayabusa and Terry Funk and everything. And so again, they weren't like this saving grace for FMW, but they made a decent amount of money, and it was I wouldn't consider it a flop. I think a lot of people learned about FMW in America from these videos, but it wasn't something that translated to FMW making money off them in Japan.
All right, and with that, we are going to close the year of 2000. We've only got a couple more of these left, so we can go on to a little bit of current news, which I'm dying to ask you, Brett. Is Onita going to have one more match?
I would guess so. I'm thinking yes. So what happened was a little boy, and I have the whole story written down on my website. I did an update yesterday. But pretty much a little boy, he sent a letter to the A-Team promotion, which is Hasegawa's promotion. He, it used to be the Kentaro Kanemaru's Apache Army promotion that turned into the A-Team after Kanemaru retired. So the boy wrote a letter pretty much stating that he wants to see Onita wrestle once again after seeing Onita last year in the Matt Tremont exploding barbed wire match in Japan in Odaiba last year. So he wrote this letter, sent it to the office. So Hasegawa and one of the A-Team employees, Machida, they traveled to Kanazaki, which is like 4 hours south of Tokyo, to find Onita on his farm, and they presented him the letter and everything, and they said, we want you to come back and everything and return to the wrestling ring. And Onita was like, look, I'm going to be honest with you, I am in a transition part of my life and everything, but you might have came all this way for nothing. Sorry to disappoint you. And they go, okay, as long as you consider it, that's fine. Well, they showed up the next day at Onita's farm again, and they asked him, did you read the letter? And he's like, yeah, I read the letter. Thank you so much for showing it to me. I'm going to think about it, pretty much. And so right now, that's where we stand. Onita is just going to think about it, and he even said, the fans might boo me. They might not, like this, that I would come back. And Hasegawa goes, the A-Team fans will appreciate it. We will understand and everything. And so it's just them trying. They have a big show for them. They're running at the Tsurumi Fruit Market, which is an old FMW stomping ground. Holds about over 1,000, near 2,000 people, and so that's a big show for A-Team, and so they want to try and get Onita to be a draw and everything. And it just came out today that Onita is going to be at Totocon on October 27th, the day before. So he's going to be in the Tokyo area the day prior to the show, which is in Yokohama, and he's going to do an interview with at the Totocon magazine, that sells a mask and magazines and all that and everything. He's going to do an interview there, so he's going to be in the region the day prior. So I would imagine at the very least he's definitely going to show up. But if I had to guess, then yeah, probably he's going to come back for this show.
I sure hope so. I can't imagine a world where he's not retiring in some way. And if you want to go over what are the other news bits going on at the moment?
The sad thing was Ray passed away from stage 3 brain cancer. She was a women's wrestler. She had competed in Smash and Reina, and pretty much every Japanese women's promotion she competed in. She was known as the female Hayabusa. She had Hayabusa's kind of like ninja pants as well, and her and Hayabusa were really close friends. She would attend a lot of his concerts because she was a really good singer and everything. And she when Super Battle FMW started up in 2015, she was kind of like the women's ace. She was the top girl and everything for the promotion, and she was having these matches against all these legends and everything. Manami Toyota, Hiyako Hamada. Well, at Korakuen Hall against Hamada, she suffered a concussion. They did a scan on her brain due to the concussion and found a tumor. And they did all these tests and everything, and it came back that the tumor was cancerous, and it was so cancerous that they couldn't even remove the tumor from her. And so, I mean, that was a death sentence right there back in 2016. I actually hung out with her in June 2016, so about 3 months afterwards. Super Battle FMW had an after party, and I just coincidentally enough, like, I just sat next to her. I mean, there was a whole bunch of wrestlers, and we just kind of sat next to each other, and she was super nice, but you could tell, I mean, I just looking at her, she knew her life was ending soon, and just this look on her face and everything. And I mean, just stage 3 brain cancer is just a death sentence. And the last year or so, she's just been pretty much living in the hospital. There was nothing they could do. They could only just try and treat it. And sadly, she passed away on August 30th. And I mean, she had a lot of really close friends, really sad over this. And I mean, it's just a tragedy. And but like I said, it was just a very sad, just a whole sad thing, especially knowing that she was really close to Hayabusa, and Hayabusa having passed away a couple of years ago. But and then Freedoms had their big show. I was correct when I predicted well over 1,000. They ended up drawing 1,600 fans for the show. And Masashi Takeda and Jun Kasai killed each other pretty much. They just were bleeding all over the place. Kasai was just covered in blood. They did some really, I mean, according to the clips I saw, they did some crazy spots. And it'll be airing on Samurai here in the next day or so. And I look forward to watching it.
Yeah, I can't wait. They brought back the scissor board. It looked just really nasty. It really looks, oh man, just too much. And right now, Kasai, he's going to be starting working with DDT. My friend told me that at the end of the match, he gave a speech that he's not going to quit wrestling anytime soon. He wants to buy a house for his family, and he's actually going to be wrestling more than he has in a while. So good for him, but the match looks brutal, and I can't wait for it to air. Brett, where can people find you online?
BahuFMW.com, like I may mention. I just did a huge update covering Freedoms, all the Onita stuff with pictures. Well over 20 pictures, I feel like, on this update. Spent about 3 days working on it. And then you can find me on Bahu FMW on Twitter, Brett FMW on YouTube. I'm now beginning the process of starting a Jun Kasai career music video that I should have done here in the next couple weeks, hopefully. And then on Instagram, Bahu FMW World, where I post pictures of random FMW pictures from the magazines in the 90s.
Awesome. And then you can find me. I'm on Twitter at INTL Wrestling. I basically just retweet every deathmatch tweet I can possibly find. I do the deathmatch newsletter at intlwrestling.wordpress.com. And no, that's not it. It's indiewrestlingintl.wordpress.com. Sorry. And I just started a second podcast you can find on the THT network. If you go to any of your podcatchers and put in the hot tag or THT, you should find it. But me and another guy, we just talk about every deathmatch news that we can possibly find for about 90 minutes, a couple times a month. So if you want to check that out, please do. And definitely come back next week, because this is easily the most, I don't know if interesting is the right word, but to me it's the most interesting part of this whole thing, is this final couple. We will see you guys later.